Left, left. Right, right. Left, right. Left, right. I fucked it up. Alright, we seem good to go. Pretty much. I'm ready to start immediately. Mm. Alright. Let's just do this. Does that sound fine? What's that over there? Alright. Hope I look right. Okay. Okay. Go over here. I know I'm hardly visible right now, but there we go. Now I am. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Obviously, it's later than usual that we do this sort of thing. Um, but I mean, I had every intention of doing this today. I think it was. I did debate on maybe Monday would be better, and I might still after we finish this chapter. I'm gonna see. Let's see how this chapter goes. Maybe I will do Monday, Tuesday, but again, I don't like it because Wednesday, Thursday we're also streaming, so and that's like a bit tight to shove it in there and everything. So it's like, I don't know. We'll see on that. Um, but ideally, yeah, today we just tackle the next two. Even if this is a long chapter, I want to tackle the next two. Um, yeah, as I had mentioned, I needed to take my nap if I was gonna end up doing this, just because stuff, right? So I did, and then I had the funny sort of scenario where I had an alarm go off, turned it off. I was awake. Uh, then, oh, fell back asleep. Well, don't worry, there's a second alarm. Wake up, turn that alarm off, go back to sleep. Um, so that happened, but it wasn't really that much longer. It was like an hour. So it was whatever ultimately. But we are here now. That is what matters. Ah, all right, now I get to switch over to my water. Okay. I'm pretty much just ready to get into this because we might as well. Hopefully it did it correctly. No, it did not. Okay. Good. Good. If I do it now, yes. Okay. Um, Let me just quickly. I now have to grab the chat from a separate tab. Do that. Pop out chat. I guess it doesn't really matter. I have to do that first. Bring this over here, around there. Move it to the side a little bit more. All right, cool. We're good to go. I'm ready to just get right into this because we might as well, right? Don't want to obviously go too late with it, but again, I'm totally fine overall. Probably covering the next two chapters. I think I'll be good on that. Because realistically, I think the latest this will most likely go, unless the next chapter is also long, in which case maybe I will delay that to Monday, is it like I think it'd be as late as like 12 or 1, which I think is overall fine. Just trying to make sure this wouldn't leak. Yeah, no. Weird. Just because it was still fresh. It was gonna leak a little bit. That's fine. Anyways, let's do this. I did debate on not doing my webcam because I'm like, I'm tired, maybe not. But I'm like, nah, we'll do it. We'll do it. Okay. Petra Lighty is a country girl born in Arlem Village, a village in the kingdom of Lagunica. She had been born with a remarkable appearance and a natural shrewdness, but other than that, there was nothing particularly noteworthy about her. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Originally, there would have been no room for her to become involved with the events that would be engraved into history, and she would have likely lived out her entire life as a mere villager, with any or yet with any prospect of visiting a city being nothing more than a dream. Ergo, having veered off her original route, becoming involved with several larger than life incidents that would go on to be etched into history, Petra's current state of existence was a result that had been warped through interference. The fact that her fate had been distorted was something that even Petra herself was aware of. Originally, Petra was a cringeworthy girl who prided herself on her cuteness, under the mistaken impression that she could lead all the nearby adults and children around by their noses. Surely, the original Petra would have never corrected that misunderstanding, instead spending her days selfishly, acting like the ruler of her own miniature world. She did not think that she did not think that would have been a particularly bad life. She believed such a life would have been happy and enjoyable in its own way. Only, now that she had strayed from that original, Petra's values simply did not allow her to view that as happiness. After all, none of the people I currently love would be there, would they? Subaru would not be there. Frederica would not be there. Amelia would not be there. Beatrice would not be there. Meili would not be there. Ram would not be there. Rem would not be there. Ryuzu would not be there. Anna Rose would not be there. Garfield would not be there. Otto would not be there. Klein would not be there. Roswell, well, that could wait for now. But everyone would not be there. That sort of thing. It's horrifying. If her original self was one who had never met the people she loved, and herself that was standing here now was a result of some collision of fate, that she was truly glad, or then she was truly glad she had strayed off from it. As a result of taking a route that was not the original. No, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. If this chapter's as long as it is, and I mean with how the previous one ended, oh boy. As a result of taking a route that was not the original, one after another, she had been subjectified, or not subjectified, subjectified, what? Well, you can tell I'm still kind of out of it from waking up. She had been subjected to difficult experiences, painful experiences, sorrowful experiences. No, yeah. Yeah. This is, to pay shocking people with Petra. Then again, he did the same with Meili, to be fair. Even if Meili was like an antagonist, he did the same thing with Meili. So it's kind of funny that both of them ended up that way. Uh, Painful experiences, sorrowful experiences, bitter experiences, experiences that made her think she was going to die, experiences that almost made death seem like the preferable outcome. But beyond even those tough experiences she had been put through, there were things she had been given, things she had managed to grasp for her own. Hence, Petra believed this from the bottom of her heart. Even if I could redo my life over and over, I'd still choose to stray from the original. Then I'd meet you again and again, just so I could tell you this. The person who knows the same suffering as you, despite looking so pained and so anguished, is still wishing upon the stars after all. Petra would. And then do vow never see off another's departure. Oh boy. Quick drink. Oh. Further down. Yeah, so this is where the bug happened. So her going hoot. With a sharp exhale, she kicked off the rocky ground, running with reckless abandon. Correcting her form, leaning forward, getting off to a start so ideal that it even amazed herself. She ran faster than she ever had in her entire life, and ran and ran and ran. The sound of blood pumping roared through her body, her heart pounding out of her chest as if it would burst, and leaving her own ragged breaths far behind her, she ran. But even when she ran that hard, play ball. The moment that cold declaration reached her from behind, her vision completely shifted. Before she knew it, the fastest sprint her legs had ever run in her life had come to a halt, leaving her standing frozen in astonishment upon the rocky terrain. Laid out in front of her was the familiar scenery to which she had assuredly turned her back, and within it the man clad in steel helm muttered, "Expand territory. Matrix redefinition." That was the signal that the man, with his face concealed behind the helmet of jet black, had commenced some undertaking by use of his authority. This span of time would always commence with that declaration of his, followed by her allies within her field of vision, knowing nothing of the man's undertaking, fiercely raising voices that shook the air. "Let's get him, you bastards!" "Yeah!" Centered around the battle cry of the courageous young girl, the group's morale swelled to a zenith and exploded. Spurred forth by the momentum, they all charged at the steel-helmed man in unison, but it was no use. The result was plain to see. Their outstretched hands could not reach the other party no matter what they did. As though a thread had snapped, all 37 individuals collapsed on the spot. I will, I forgot to mention this. I realize now because I was talking about this. Yeah, so fun fact for everybody. I made a tweet just after the stream had ended last time because I was trying to double check how much we had left. I wanted to be absolutely sure. I'm like, okay, let me make sure I'm doing the math correctly here, all that. Or not when we ended off. Sorry, that's my bad. It's when we were about to end off. When I was actually looking at the chapters, double checking the count, then, right? Um, I have done such a good job at not looking this whole time, right? I have looked at the numbers perfectly fine. Every single time we read a chapter of this volume, did it no problem. Even before we started, I remember I looked at the chapters ahead of time and I just looked at the specific number and I was like, okay, cool, got it. I know we are, where we have to get to, all that. I don't know any of the titles. Uh the worst timing possible because we were right there. Uh when I was about to end off that previous stream, I had looked through the chapter list just to be sure. Okay, let me make sure that's all correct on the number. And then as soon as I got to chapter 58, I don't know why my eyes did this for the first time ever. They slightly veered to the right, and I saw the title of that chapter, and I went. And I mean, I didn't react actual like visually, right? I didn't want to kind of show that I had seen it. But I did tweet about it after because I'm like, no, I should admit that I did see what the title was. And yeah, I have an idea for what's coming. I have an idea for where we're ending off. But we'll get there. We'll get there. It's just like, man, I was so close. I feel like this has happened before. I feel like with Arc 8 or Arc 7 or something like that, I feel like this happened and I just like the sort of same experience had occurred, except the difference was we weren't doing live reading sessions. But I feel like I remember this happening before. But it's like, man, fuck. I wish I hadn't seen it. Wish I hadn't seen it. Worst part is I don't know how bad the other chapter like titles are, but like that one's rough, right? Having the actual like context of things, seeing that chapter title is like probably the worst one I could have seen. Uh, all right, let's keep going. So a thread had snapped. All 37 individuals collapsed on the spot. It appeared as though they had all collapsed at once, but by carefully observing the manner in which each and every one of them collapsed, she had long since figured out that the way they fell actually had a very precise order to it. But then again, there's only a difference of around 2 seconds between the first and the 37th person to fall. There was no room to interrupt in those brief seconds, and any attempt to do so had ended in futility. It's not like it was futile. Learning that a method isn't going to work isn't futile. Harboring such a bleak sentiment, her eardrums were thus struck by a voice. No, it was not her eardrums. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. This voice was not one delivered by vibrations in the air, so it's not her eardrums that had resonated. Yep. If it was not her eardrums that had resonated, then just what in the world had it been? That's a given, isn't it? It's the heart. The heart. Yes, that's it. That's right. It's because her heart had resonated that she had been able to hear it. Her heart had still had enough leeway to resonate. As proof of that, he was there. And so, mustering forth that name of his, Subaru. Yeah, I'm right here, Petra. Petra, as those lips of his called out her name, she breathed a sigh of relief. That was right. She was Petra Lighty. She still clutched onto that, refusing to let go. After all, if that was the case, then therefore, that was why it would mean play ball. Petra Lighty had no choice but to continue on this tour of hell. Vow to never accept charity of another. Alright. Alright. Plan territory, matrix redefinition, play ball. An interval commencing with that declaration and concluding with that proclamation. Just how much time had Petra spent trapped in this loop, exceeding not even a single minute? Though, not even a single second has passed. With such a riposte to the whisperings of her own heart, Petra exhaled a raspy ha. Even she found it to be a terribly cynical mutter, one of self-ridicule that seemed to despair over the world. To think that she could utter a voice clouded by such deeply blackened emotions, it was shock to even herself. But it was certainly neither some sort of mistake nor a matter of having misheard the voice of another. After all, in this place, the only voices present are mine, those people's, that man's, and Subaru's. Flopping down on her backside, Petra pressed her forehead against her knees and grumbled so. Before her eyes, a group of 37 people attempted to charge at the lone helmeted man. And once again did the moment unfold in which they were all dispatched with nary a sound. Truly, they were all out of their minds. Why couldn't they just understand? Are they all just slow in the head? Why do they keep charging straight ahead without any strategy, even when it's clear they'll be taken down? See, there it happened again. Everyone was falling down, one after another. An all too familiar sight, one far more absurd than the figures of villains that would be defeated incessantly by champions of justice on the morning hero time on TV. Over and over and over and over and over. How stupid. There ought to have been clever individuals in their ranks. Yet, why, for what reason, did they not have no strategy? Or did they have no strategy? Even though they have been defeated time and time again, why did they not consider trying any different approaches? She knew. Those people were unaware that they had already been defeated countless times. They had no idea that they were being defeated over and over again, nor did they understand that they would only continue to be taken down over and over again. One knew not what lay ahead, then there was no avoiding being engulfed by the determined or predetermined progression. She was just venting her anger toward them. It was unreasonable. It was illogical. She knew that. She knew, but even so, you're all grown-ups, so just do something about it already. Upon her unfolded knees, again and again and again, she slammed her forehead. It hurts, it doesn't hurt. It hurts, it doesn't hurt. It hurts, it doesn't hurt. Hurts, it doesn't hurt. It hurts, it doesn't hurt. Ah, play ball, ah, ah. Uh, across both the terminus and the commencement of the loop, she had succeeded in raising her voice. So what? At the extent, sorry, at the eccentricity of Petra suddenly raising that strange cacophony, a shift was born in everyone who had been about to charge at the man helmed in steel. They all turned their eyes towards her. What a what a clever fucking trick. The, the idea of, I mean, it's smart. It's very smart. And obviously, this could just be her, going insane with it, right? But the idea of, okay, what's the easiest way to get everybody to stop? Oh, I know. Scream. Right? If I just scream as loud as physically possible, everybody that wants to charge in is going to be like, it, oh, that's hilarious. That is a really good solution, but that is hilarious. Uh, they had all turned their eyes towards her, aghast at the sight of Petra scratching at her head and clamoring out. Oi, what's wrong? Petra, fuck's happening? Did he do something to you? Fall back, Petra. You're the cornerstone for Ram and the others. Voices hurtled towards her, worrying for Petra, who had raised a strange cry upon being subjected to some abnormality. Everyone in that moment produced fresh voices and words, trying to comfort Petra. They made her glad. Thank you. I love you all. Really. Truthfully. But I'm sick of it. I already know all that, you know. What manner of voices everyone would raise if Petra broke down like this, she knew. That they would all do their best to rack their brains if Petra earnestly tried to explain the loop to them, she knew. The fact that everyone would lend an ear if Petra proposed. No, yeah. Uh, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. She's, she's a little familiar with that sort of thing at this point, considering all the stuff. If Petra proposed that they'd all run, or they would all run away and scatter through compression, she knew. She knew. She knew it all. She had seen it, heard it, referenced it, divulged it, imparted it, discussed it, pondered it, challenged it, strategized against it, tried to defy it, tried to abandon it, picked it back up, then cast it aside again. Say something different already. Show me something different already. Be different already. Different from just now. Different from before. Different from what's next. Different from this time. Just do something different already. With a crumpled up face, the very visage of ugliness, Petra's voice fractured with unseemly cracks, raising an incomprehensible string of words as she scratched at the ground to the point that her nails were starting to peel off. Beholding that, everyone was rendered speechless, but immediately pinpointing the cause to be the man in steel helmet, they directed the brunt of their rage towards him, baring their fangs. Petra, stand up. Ram will lend you her shoulder. As the group charged towards the man in the steel helmet, one person had broken away from the crowd and extended her hand out to Petra. How kind. Even in this situation, even with her sharp voice and steel expression, her hand was kind. I love you. But you see, play ball. Expand territory, Matrix redefinition. Indeed, her disheveled face, her peeled off nails, her worn out voice, all were restored. Concerned they had shown her, their uproar of righteous indignation, that distress towards one's protege, all of it had been reset. Having been reset, they would savor the unspoiled beginning and end with a brand new feeling. Let's get 'em, you bastards. Yeah! How nice it must have been for everyone, with feelings so fresh, they could still cry out in such high spirits. But she could not. She couldn't. She had tried to do her best with them, and had done her best with them over 100 times. See, something I like here. Now, I could be wrong by the end of this chapter, but I like that this technically, not that it doesn't phase her, it phases her, but this isn't fully going to break Petra because of what I feel to be the book, right? The fact that she's read the book and had to go through a specific type of hell already that's similar to this, having that in mind, and then going to the, like, obviously that only goes up to arc 4, so technically speaking, some of the greater events that Subaru had felt won't have been, or wouldn't have been experienced. But it still doesn't change the fact that obviously, big thing there, this is a lot for her to experience at once. So therefore, it makes sense that she's a particularly hard character to break in that regard. It's kind of interesting. I like that a lot. But that would change nothing. Everyone would still collapse so selfishly before her with their eyes gone white. It was truly unfair. Maybe I should also get a bit unfair. Pout upon her lips, she blurted out such words. As she did so, everyone had already gone Betty by. So before Petra, the man approached with disorderly steps as he fiddled with the metal fixtures on his helmet. Then leisurely, the man reached that very hand that had been fiddling with those metal fixtures towards Petra. It's just a passing thought. But did he properly take care of that helmet? He would need to make sure to oil it, wipe it with a dry cloth, and do all the proper maintenance, wouldn't he? Yeah, see, she, getting back into that maid mentality. Realizing this person had been fighting constantly without even the chance to bathe, she had felt a bit of resistance towards the hand that was extending towards her, but she would endure it. Enduring it and enduring it, she would waited for the outstretched hand to reach her. It might be harder if she kept staring at him. In that case, she'd shut her eyes so that he could catch her while she did so. All right, one, two, three. No, yeah, I do like, and here's the thing. I like doing this as well on occasion. I like that. I like when prose sometimes very clearly it is written in an interesting way where at times, and again, I have done this many a time, you specifically direct it towards the character involved. So like this feeling a lot closer to Petra, which in a sense wouldn't like I'm going to say wouldn't make sense, right? That's the best way to word it. It wouldn't make sense because it's the prose. It's just conveying the narration to you. However, it works really well because you're getting a feel for how that character, like their mentality in the situation, how they normally speak, all this, but it's not via their like narrating, right? It's not a you are seeing the character actively talk in the present tense or whatever it may be, or like more so from their perspective, right? Only everything from what they see, right? Like I guess the easiest example I can think of is like the Liliana chapters, right? Where it's like talking from her perspective, right? You get the narration you would expect, completely third person talking about everybody as it would, but it's done in such a way where it talks about the character. I love doing that, and it does make me happy to see stuff like Tepe's work here actively doing that like 247. It's like it's nice. It's very nice. No, yeah, yeah. It's absolutely also a little bit messy, and I kind of like it as a result, right? The fact that I think the fact that this is brought up, this in particular, it's not letting me highlight this correctly, but you can see what I'm highlighting. This in particular, this snippet feels very like we can see already that that mental state of hers is already starting to like crack a bit, but then this I think in particular kind of noting some I'm going to say lesser important aspects, right? Like talking about Al's helmet and without even a chance to bathe, all this, right? It's like not fully focused on this fight and more so focused on Al himself, right? And this like unnecessary sort of aspect to it. It's like it's fun. I like that, right? It's really nice. Oh, there's one of the pieces of art, right? Fatso, even getting caught is no good. Yeah. Oh, that's a crazy line. I should have just scrolled down a little bit. That is a really good line for it. And that's some good art to go with. Ooh, that works well. That works very well. Never speak of my failures. Ooh. 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 That's good. This is good. When she initially realized that she had been caught in a loop that commenced upon that signal, Petra had managed to maintain her composure without being greatly perturbed. Even in the face of such an apparent situation, she had naturally been a bit shaken, but it was far less than one might have expected. That was because Petra were looping through a short span or through a short time span. It's Al's next trick. Shouting that out in lieu of Petra was the sole entity who was sharing in the loop that Petra had been caught in. The only one who had experience with the flow of repeating time, the imaginary Subaru. Presence of Subaru, and the message left by Ramji that she had just seen before being trapped. The marks etched into the ground, as if tabulating something, had suppressed Petra's discomposure. Ramoji-san was also put through what I'm experiencing now. Yeah, but way less, Petra. One horizontal line overlapping four vertical ones. That was a method of keeping count known as tally marks, which, when using kanji, would typically be done by drawing the character. Uh, by leaving that engraved upon the ground, Ramji had conveyed the situation he had been placed in to Petra. It's difficult to imagine that Ramji had ended up in that state after only 5 times he had marked. So what he had intended to convey was not the actual number of times he had looped, but rather the fact that he was looping in itself. Having already fallen into the same predicament, the information might have seemed too late for Petra, but that was not so. The message Ramji had left behind was a clear warning to Petra. In other words, that which Ramji had wished to say was this: if I keep on repeating this forever, I'll end up like Oji-san. The collapsed Ramji had sustained no external injuries. It was not as though he had ended up like this due to being tormented by wounds accumulated through the repetitions. No. In a sense, there was no doubt that it was a result of which had been accumulated. In other words, across the time that Ramji had repeated, his mind had been completely whittled away. No shot, I've been here for like. No, I guess I did start at 8:30. Okay. I looked at the time, I saw it was 9. I'm like, no shot, we've been here for an hour already. I mean, that said, we've been here for a bit, but still. In other words, across the time that Ramji had repeated, his mind had been completely whittled away. Without a doubt, that was precisely the same tactic that Petra and the Aldebusters had attempted to use against Al, so it could be said that he had turned it around on them as an act of revenge. She did not think that Al had been aiming for such revenge, but either way, if she had been caught in this situation without any preparation, Petra would have suffered the same fate as Ramji. Nah, it's not just Ramji. From the looks of it, the same thing happened to Ram and the others. Right, Alsan is using his authority on everyone who's charging at him in the same way, but the timing of when the loop starts is when everyone is still conscious, isn't it? Sure, seems that way. Maybe a repeating situation, but maybe it's something like it also reflects the real-time events outside of the loop. So after someone gets taken down, it exits and moves on to the next, or something. In that case, I'm already the only one left. The meaning concealed within Subaru's words was far too hopeless, causing Petra's cheeks to stiffen. Supposing that by the time Petra's turn in this loop arrived, the fates of her allies and the Aldebusters could no longer be altered, even if this loop were to come to an end. Wait. Don't be so pessimistic. Even, even if, even if that turns out to be the case, we've got the authority of Touristia. With that, we could compress their cooldown time or something, compressing the time that they're fainted, so they suddenly get back up. Yeah, it's never been done before. Wouldn't it be amazing if we did it? As Subaru snapped his fingers and proposed this idea, Petra's breath caught slightly. In truth, she could imagine that such a feat would be rather difficult. It's possible to use her authority to compress time for discussion on the interval it took to acquire a new skill, but it required a comparable amount of energy. In a nutshell, if Petra were to compress a single day for herself, it would consume a day's worth of energy, or 3 days. It would be 3 days' worth for 7 days, 7 days' worth, and so on. It required a month, or even somewhere in the denomination of years, to recover a heart-worn fin. Then there would be no way to supply the energy necessary for compression. Compression was by no means omnipotent, but even if that was the case, yeah, I think it would be really amazing. We might be able to do it, right? That's why you first got to drill it in your head. Once you escape the loop, the first thing you need to do is get everybody back on their feet. If you don't, you'll be overwhelmed in one fell swoop. As Petra, not as Petra, what? As Subaru constructively planned for the events that would transpire upon the loop's nullification, she, she nodded in agreement with him. Then, looking back, she believed that Ramji had probably thought the same thing. Likely, even if it wore out his heart, the wise old giant had prioritized inscribing a message into the ground unconsciously. By exerting that motion over and over and over again, he managed to lock in that action for when the loop had come to an end. In that case, she ought to accept Subaru's plan of deciding on the actions to take immediately after the loop concluded. Only, how many times did Ram Ojisan need to resist to ingrain that into his body? even with his mind worn thin, fallen into a state where he could not perceive or preserve, even in his sense of self. Ramji had successfully managed to scratch the ground right after his loop had ended, to memorize that action, engraving it into his soul so that he would be able to perform it, even if his heart was shattered. Just how much had he exerted? Petra, let's do some testing. In the past, Beko devised a looping hallway that went on forever. If the rules are the same as that, then there's got to be a condition to end the loop. Petra swallowed hard, and Subaru informed her of their next course of action. Smiling back with a yeah, smiling back a yeah with a nod, Petra once again faced forward. Scared me, bastards. Yeah! Even during the conversation Petra and Subaru were having just now, the sequence of her fellow Aldebusters challenging Al, or toppling down before him, had been repeating. In all honesty, as she had gleaned from his Book of the Dead, the way Subaru would cherish each and every loop, carefully storing the details of all the events within himself, was something she respected and thought of as cool. But it would be difficult to pull off the same thing in this loop that exceeded not even a single minute. I gotta say, even if I think it's unreasonable to expect you to properly mourn each time they all get taken out in a situation like this. But there's something you gotta make sure you remember. The number of times it repeats? Well, that too. But for each of those times, Petra, you need to remember the anger you felt, the regret you felt, the sorrow you felt. Remember that, no matter what. That's right. In this world of repetitions, amidst the loop that only continued to go on and on and on, she was the only one who could carry these feelings forward. So just as Subaru said, she had to ensure that she remembered. After she exited the loop, even if Al had no idea of what Petra and the others had endured, she would never forgive him. No matter what, she would hammer into him exactly how much they had suffered. With that vow in her heart, Petra nodded at Subaru and faced to the fore. It's the stars. If stars were bad. Then, facing off squarely against the approaching Al, play ball, play ball, play ball. Indeed, they bravely declared their intent to embark on this tour of hell. They vow to let anyone tie up my hair. Oh boy. Quick drink. Ah, you know, I think I'll be right back actually. Just give me like, I don't know, 5 minutes or something. dog starts running around, just barking. I'm like, oh, do you want like up on the bed while I'm just reading through all this? And then she just leaves the room, and I'm like, okay, all right. Very indecisive dog. Hopefully, I don't know if it'll. Okay, it will switch to the correct one regardless. All right, back to it then. Whew, apologies for that. I just temporarily had to dip there. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. I did actually. Yeah, it's fine. I was gonna check the word count, and I'm like, you know what? No, I am. I'm like, you know what? No, it's probably a better idea to do so, just so I have a gauge on like. I don't necessarily need to know the time, but it's just good to have a general sort of idea. You know what I mean? Oh my God, we still have 8,000. We've only gone past 4,000 words. Wow. I mean, I guess that would be accurate for the time we've spent reading, but like, shit, we gotta double that. We have to fucking double that? Damn. Damn. All right. Also, hello, hello. Okay. Back to it. I might try to further back. And so, resolve was having been sealed. Petra continued to wander the depths of hell, into which she had plunged herself. I do kind of hope like the chapter after this, is not that long. Like, not that long in the sense of like if it's like 6,000 or 7,000 words or 8,000 words, somewhere around that range, that's fine. Anything past that is going to be like, woof, we might save that for Monday. Uh, Grasping her knees, slamming her forehead, or what should I do? Grasping her knees, slamming her forehead against those knees, again and again, she questioned herself. What should she do? What was it that she ought to do? How could she put an end to this loop? What's the condition? There was a condition for this loop to terminate. That person had said as much to Petra. And if Petra, uh, and Petra was of the same opinion. It was standard practice for these types of situations, the kind where the same events would play out repeatedly without end, to have some sort of end condition that would serve as the trigger. A formula, a foregone conclusion, a rule, and since it was a rule, it had to be kept. It just had to. Surely it was being kept, because it was kept, there would certainly be a way to put an end to it. Yes, that's all. The argument is over. Since it's over, it's time to think about the condition. The trigger to end it, what could it be? You got that snap in there at the end. It's like, oh, yeah, no, you can tell this is whittling away at her. Tried all sorts of things, Employing compression to the fullest, she had surely attempted an array of methods much more vast than any ordinary person would have. She had worked with her allies to defeat this man in the steel helmet, and when it was clear that taking him down was not a viable option, she had attempted to let everyone flee by means of compression. Of course, Petra had also tried getting herself as far away as possible, tried deliberately letting herself get caught by an outstretched hand of the steel helmeted man at the end. And she had even tried leaping straight into the arm of the man in the steel helmet on her own accord. It had all been for naught. Considering the possibility that one of her allies had been, or might have been possessed, or might have possessed some method of breaking the deadlock. She had even tried discussing with each and every person, deeply probing all of their individual circumstances, laying bare their secrets, hearing all about their family situation, upbringings, and hometowns, and finally sharing the sorts of things that people would typically not even disclose to close friends of over 10 years. It had all been useless. Wondering if the correct answer was perhaps to approach the steel helmeted man, she had tried speaking to him, tried giving him the cold shoulder, tried winning and losing against him in a one-on-one fight with none other than, or none of her allies, tried winning and losing against him in a fight without using compression, tried running, tried mocking him, tried lauding him, and tried singing. It had all been meaningless. So then, what the hell should I even do? She had done it all. She had, hadn't she? She had done just about every last thing she could possibly think of, hadn't she? Even she did. Even though she did, had it all been for naught? Even though she did, had it all been useless? Even though she did, had it all been meaningless? Let's get 'em, you bastards! Yeah. Shut up. Even though they were unable to do anything at all, those spirited shouts pissed her off. If they weren't going to help, the least they could do was not get in the way of her thinking. Oh, this is that real Subaru break mentality. Uh, I'm just venting my anger on them. I hate this. I hate this. I hate myself. Don't want to have these kinds of thoughts. What the hell's that about? Trying to act all goody goody. This is the real me, isn't it? Everyone there. I don't even like them or anything of the sort. I just like the version of myself who seems so unprejudiced and tender and compassionate and big-hearted to be saying that I love all those people so, so, so much. Isn't that right? Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Right, left, or right and left and up and down, and front and back and past and future and present and today and tomorrow and yesterday and the day after tomorrow and the day before yesterday and last year and this year and next year and past life and current life and next life, absolutely all of it, everything, everywhere, all at once and all of everything. Just shut up. How many times has it been now? Shut up, just die already. Or maybe I should just kill you? It continues. Thoughts though. Expand territory, matrix redefinition. Back to the same place. That wasn't that a surprise. Sometimes we'll say something other than play ball. During this loop, since all the others present here aren't simply puppets, they react if something is said to them. They respond accordingly if something is done to them. And that wasn't just limited to them. It went for the man in steel helmet too. Maybe it was obvious, but it seemed the man in the helmet, the man helmed in steel, could tell what she was going through. So what? Even if he knew, this world would end, and when the next one starts, not even he, as the instigator, would follow her there. Petra was always alone, constantly restarting in the same world without cease. Nobody could understand Petra's struggle and suffering. She was all by herself, all by her lonesome, completely alone. Was I completely alone? Subaru, Subaru, where, where are you? Petra. The moment she remembered him, as if a flash of lightning, his figure suddenly appeared right before Petra's eyes. Seeing that, Petra immediately knew that he was Subaru, and she breathed a sigh of relief. Everything had seemed to be on the verge of blurring and fading away, slipping from her grasp, but even so, it was not as if she had forgotten everything, nor had she been abandoned. Subaru, as the tears immediately began to overflow and sully her disheveled face, she rushed over to him. She leapt towards him. He promptly held both of his arms out and attempted to embrace Petra. He could not. She passed right through him. Upon the desolate ground, she tumbled down without any attempt to catch her fall. It hurt. She fell flat on her face. Subaru. No. Subaru did not catch Petra. Of course, it was always that way. After all, Subaru's hands were always occupied with somebody else. In that case, don't even bother reaching your hand out to me. Petra. Back then, Back then, wouldn't it have been better if you just left me there to die? If in the village, if you had done nothing, if you had just left me there, if you had just left me to die to those witch beasts, wouldn't it have been better? She knew. If Natsuki Subaru had not interfered, Petra would have died long ago. Even though she had died, she was still alive. She had ended up living. Because she had ended up living, she was now going through such suffering, such painful thoughts, and none of it would come to an end. Sorry, Petra. Sorry. But please hang on. Don't talk like that. Huh? Huh? What's that? Even though I'm going through such a hard time, you're scolding me? Even though I've been hurting all this time, over and over and over again, crying like this, you're scolding me? You're scolding me? Just stop it already. She exploded. She had done it. She had really gone and done it now. There was Subaru, a look of sorrow and concern painted on his face, and Petra began wanting to vomit blood, began wanting to gouge her own heart out, began wanting to blow her own head off. Actually, why not? Most straightforward trigger to end the loop. With those words, she formed a finger gun, pressed her index finger against her temple. Concentrating manga in the app fingertip, a dim white light began to illuminate. Beholding this sight, Subaru, petrified, reached out his hand out towards Petra, even though he couldn't touch her at all. See, it went right through. Petra, wait, don't be so hasty. I get it, I really do, but hold off on that sort of method. If the opponent's aim is to make you do that, then marry me already. Who Make me your bride already. Become my Subaru already. Make me your number one. You saved me, so marry me. Embrace me for the rest of my days. Claim my life for yourself already. If you do, then fine. But you won't do that now, will you? In that case, my life is my own, isn't it? If it's my life, then let me use it as I please. Even she herself did not understand what she was trying to say. Anyhow, everything was making her angry. Not a single thing that was turning out, or not a single thing was turning out how she wanted it to. She was angry at all the people who were not doing anything about the situation, and the man in the steel helmet who had caused this situation. She hated it, hated it, hated it. But I love Subaru. Ha. I don't get it. He's not doing anything for me, is he? But he's always been doing stuff for me. And even though he's still trying his best to do something for me, doesn't he? Or even now, he won't marry me, though. What's the deal with that? How stupid. Pet. Ah, I didn't mean it that way, you know. I wasn't saying that to Subaru, you know. I'm the one who's stupid, after all. Ah, a head like this. I guess I don't need it anymore. Bye bye. With that thought, white light shot out of the finger gun with a bang. Mm, mm. And I can already see expand territory, matrix redefinition, and then, yeah. Oh, that art is crazy. Never hope for fortune's favor. Oh, damn. Ah. The craziest part is we have seen Subaru do the same type of shit, but usually it was because of something, right? It was either uh the third arc we had the whole thing with Rem, right? And he assumed, well, if I die, she can come back. And there was the alternative of uh arc 7 and all that, where it was like, if I drink the poison, I can reset this and we can win, right? So it's like, that's the simple thing, is I use the poison, we win, right? And already his mind was like wearing away a bit at previous, I guess, moments with him and everything. So that had naturally happened. Um, but I don't think we've ever seen it get this bad with him, to the point that he was like willing to just do this flat out, no issues there, no nothing, just kind of do that, right? Uh, no, yeah, so I'm gonna make a guess right now, right? Because I wanted to make this guess on the last stream actually. I want, but like, I don't know that there's enough chapters in this arc to conclude the whole thing with Al, right? So I am of the opinion, especially because him being connected to Echidna and all that, I am of the opinion that this is going to be a, I'm going to say a tie in a sense, right? This neutral outcome where, uh, no, yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like Petra's just stuck here with how this situation is. Um, right, what was I saying? Yeah, it's like, so I was gonna mention this on the previous stream, but I'm of the opinion that this whole arc is going to end with a tie. That is my guess for right now. Of like, they don't necessarily lose, but Al kind of manages to get away. That's kind of what I'm expecting here. Because I don't know that there's enough chapters that we're gonna conclude that, right? I feel like every previous arc you could kind of get that feeling. Something about it, especially because we haven't seen the geyser in a while, right? The whole thing was the geyser going off was such a huge deal. Um, I think we are going to end off in such a spot where we're not really, like, Al hasn't necessarily won in a sense, but they also haven't necessarily won, right? This neutral sort of zone. So that's how I had thought before, and I think this this kind of like plays into that, because the thing I had once expected about Arc 9 was the idea that Subaru and all them might try and forgive Al, And now I don't know because like yeah, right, because that's exactly what I mean. It was one thing. Like genuinely it was one thing when we were at the the start of the arc, right? Because I think like kidnapping felt sure, right? And I mean, obviously, unleashing Satella is like kind of this thing of like, or I guess not Satella, but you know what I mean, like Witch of Envy, is kind of this thing, where, yeah, by all means, characters in the series will get you executed for that, right? But Subaru's group might be like Subaru himself and maybe Amelia and all that might be a little bit more forgiving. This is at a point now with all this where it's just like, Al, I'm sorry to tell you, buddy, and I'm sure this is the result you expect, but Al, I'm sorry to tell you, buddy, that's it, right? Doing the aggressor mode shit at this point is just like, no, right? Because even with the stuff with Roswell, right? Even with all that, it's kind of like, no, yeah. I was literally about to talk about Roswell, yeah. Is like, this is to such a degree where like this isn't even comparable to the shit Roswell was doing with the like the gospel, because like that's of a similar degree of like, oh yeah, okay, Echidna essentially grooming him to this point of like, oh, I have a new like, not vessel, but like, vessel to just do my bidding, I guess, more so. Um, but not even to the same degree as that, because at least with that there was a solution. There was an understanding of the situation, and when everything had happened with Ram, and she had burned the gospel, and then also she was like technically speaking almost at death's door. Uh, that kind of like snapped him out of it, right? It was kind of this moment where he had realized I'm going a little far with this, right? Like he still has every intention to, oh, like to help out Echidna in a sense, but it is still this thing of like Roswell kind of realized, yeah, I don't know if I should go this far. This is a little fucked up. Like, oh, I'm starting to get what I'm doing now. Ooh, right. Al doing this shit, even if he has no control over the aggressor mode, right, is to such a point where he's blatantly using it now, and he's not to say he's having fun, but he is inherently like making comments about what Petra's experiencing, and it's like, bro, these characters are gonna kill you, right? The only characters that could potentially forgive you is like Subaru and Amelia. Any other character, that's it, right? That is it. Like, I don't even know about Reinhard, man. It's like he fucking dropped out the Witch of Envy on him. I don't know that even Reinhard would be cool with it. No, yeah, like I mean, yeah, it's kind of this thing of it is impressive how much she's enduring. Again, I do think the book helps. I think the book inherently helped her manage that a little bit, but it is this thing of like, yeah, yeah, it's and this is partially why I don't know. I've said this before on the previous stream. I actually don't think, like, I think it was smart that Petra did, because I think inherently that connection the two of them have is what allowed her to persevere with the book. I think if Melee had read it, that was it, right? I think if Melee had read it, Witch of Envy would be out and Melee would be out of commission. I think genuinely, like, it's not to say she doesn't care, because we know she cares, right? We know well by now that she cares about these people, right? And especially Subaru and Petra and all that. No, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just viewing it from the perspective of like, I don't know, I don't know, I could see a potential middle ground, because him and Al. were once buddy buddy and Al had helped them out a lot, but it's like, and he understands what Al's going through, but like, yeah, no, it is rough at this point where I don't know. It might just end up being just Amelia being the only character like that. Um, no, yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't, but like, in regards to that though, yeah, it's like, I don't know that someone like Melee could have persevered with the book because Petra from the beginning has done well, right? Petra has done well to survive. Uh, she has been at death's door several times and still chosen to, uh, focus on the survival of others. Like, obviously, Arc 2, we know she mentioned what was happening in regards to Melee, right? Despite the fact that, again, she was in a pretty bad state. And then in comparison, we have uh we have Arc 4, where she's got a knife to her neck and she doesn't care about that. She gives them a signal to attack, and they do just that. Yeah, I mean, by all means, she has been a character that has been absurdly strong throughout. I mean, shit, even like in Arc 8, she was confronted by Todd and all this, and she still held out strong. She was mostly just, support character who was like doing what little magic she could, but still. Yeah, yeah, that's another thing as well, because that is what led me to that thought process of Melee. Is Melee has had this belief. I'm saying had in past tense, obviously. Had this belief for a while pre Arc 6 that or I guess more so pre Arc 4, like pre end of Arc 4, that oh yeah, I went through all this like torture and everything. So like, I'm not really too scared about all this stuff, dying, all that, but that's a like joke. But then post Arc 4 happens. Elsa's dead. She can't report back. She reports back. That's it for her, right? So she realizes that, and that is the moment she breaks, right? That is the moment where she realizes, I'm gonna die. Like she just notices that and goes, I don't want that to happen. I don't wanna. Right? So very clearly with Arc 6, we know that that shit would not fly for her. She struggles with all this. She's trying to look for books, right? All that, like, it's this point where, mm, mm, right? Ironically, despite being the character that should persevere more, it's actually because of how she was tortured that uh, I feel like in that sense she like can't, right? She has lost what she felt like supported her, and now she's gained new people to support her. But again, it doesn't change the fact that inherently there is always this threat looming over. She knows that no matter where she goes, if she's spotted, that's that, right? Like that's it for her. Um, and that's such a specific thing because like in comparison to that, Petra, we know, kind of just lives her life day by day doing what she does, right? She ends up in these wild scenarios that she never expected to be in, like they had brought up, but she is specifically, yeah, like I would argue again, I would argue someone like Elsa, as much as she is by all means not a perfect person at all, pretty fucking bad on the list, right? Um, with that said, she was this supporting weight to Melee, right? Melee had felt like she could kind of lean on her a whole lot. As much as she didn't want to admit it, that mattered a lot to her, right? And that's kind of the thing. Everything else is like, yeah, she was raised by witch beasts. That wasn't going to do shit for her in this scenario. And Capella was just actively going to make everything worse. That's kind of the situation she's in. Um, but with Petra, like I was saying, it's kind of this thing of like Petra, despite having these wild scenarios that pop up, it's kind of this thing of she's kind of just lived her life day by day as any normal person would, right? Uh, Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were at least like it's weird to say because witch beasts are inherently malicious. I've been using inherently like a lot the past few weeks, and I need to get that word out of my vocabulary. I've used it multiple times every day. Um, witch beasts by definition are kind of just malicious, but the way she grew up with them is just very simple animal sort of nature. You know what I mean? Like you hunt, you eat, you sleep. Very simple process, right? So it's kind of this thing of like, yeah, she kind of just lived her life normally, like one of them would, right? Like a witch beast or like an actual animal would. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Whereas, compared to Elsa, there was that thing of being raised to be like, oh yeah, you like kill, right? Just like that sort of thing. Um, that said, I don't think there was inherently uh I did it again. I just realized I did it again. Fuck. Um, that said, I think there are aspects of Elsa being that big sister figure to her that worked, right? We've seen scenes with them where there's a more, I'm gonna say, lighthearted moment, right? Obviously, does not change the fact that Elsa is a psychopath, but it's still this thing of like we see a moment where there's that sisterly sort of bond between them, and then on top of that, there's the scene I always love to reference because it's so damn important of Elsa bringing up the fact that we shouldn't really, try and follow Capella to a T, right? That's kind of one of the things she mentions is like, listen, as is this situation, it's weird. You don't have to trust me, all this, but that person do not end up like that, right? Um, like do not follow her to a T. All that. It's like it's very interesting in that aspect. Um, but again, it does not change the fact that yes, of course, the witch beasts are ultimately like the best influence for her, and that's still not great. Whereas for Petra, there's been a lot of people she's surrounded herself with, and it's just like, yeah, I think honestly that's what makes both of their characters so genius to exist as these like friends and everything that interact a lot because like they're both raised in two different ways, and you think from experience, Melee would be the more battle hardened one. But it's ironically because of how Melee was raised that it's like, no, this character just would break with nothing, right? This character, despite thinking that she can handle all this shit, nah, it's like that's way too much for her. So I like that a lot. It's a very interesting contrast between them. And yeah, I mean, huh. It is crazy that DePay can take these two characters and just write them absurdly well, right? I like, I'm not saying he can't do that with his characters or whatever it may be, or he hasn't done that before, but it's like these should be two characters. Like, this is something I brought up when I talked about Arc 6, I believe. Of, I feel like with most series, when they write kids, they do it in such a simplistic sort of manner, right? Not saying that that simple manner is bad, but it's like I think you can give some depth, right? They don't a kid as a character in a story does not have to be a character that has like a whole bunch of shit going on, much like we see with again someone like Melee here. Um, I don't think they automatically have to be that, but I do think that type of character usually ends up being the least favorite for a lot of people. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that people write that sort of thing as just the most simple thing of this kid gets upset and they like candy and they like like I know I'm saying that in such a weird way where it's like, well, I mean, I could fit like a whole lot of characters, but it's just kind of this thing where it's like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the time there's like 5 notes written down, like very short notes written down about that type of character, and then that's it. They work off that for the whole thing, right? And again, not every story is like that, but that tends to happen a decent amount of the time. And I think this works a lot better uh for this, like these sorts of characters, because you have two different aspects of, here's Melee, a character with a shit ton of depth, right? Just off everything you learn about her and all this, and it's like it's crazy that he wrote this much about this random kid that we knew from like arc 2 and everything. But she's great. She's fantastic. She is a top 10 character for me anyways, right? And then we have Petra, who's like, yeah, the more simplistic one, right? Not necessarily simple as in like there's nothing to her, but simple as in there's nothing like too extreme. She grew up just in this like, farm sort of village, and wasn't really in the city, dreamed of it at some point, and just ended up in her predicament as is because Subaru and all them ended up interacting with her. So that's how she got here, right? So it's interesting because it's like, yeah, for someone like Petra, there's not much more than that, right? I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I know this is just like an automatic, yeah, no, that's the thing. Petra's gonna go high for me after this, right? I already felt Petra was pretty damn good. Here's the thing, I was shocked when I saw that people didn't like Petra that much. I remember Petra, Puck, who was the third one? Who is the third one I always see people complain about? Fuck, who is it? I'm trying to remember. It's Petra, Puck, and there's one more. And I forgot who the third one is. Who the fuck was it? Oh, it's I know who it is. I know who it is. Uh also yeah, that is true. It's Arc 7 and 8 girl. She was in EX5. What is it? Archaea, I think. I want to say it's Archaea. I want to say that's correct. You know what I'm gonna do? Yes, yes, Archaea. Okay, yes, it is in fact her. Yeah, I remember those three were the big ones that people did not like. I consistently always saw, whenever I saw random tier lists back during like Arc 7 and 8, they were like the three at the bottom of like, these are some of the worst characters in the series, right? And it's like, okay, I understood it for Archaea because I don't know, I think story wise, yeah, by all means, she works, right? Like I think story wise she is good, but I do think, yeah, design wise, this ain't even just artist interpretation of her. The way Tappei wrote her of like, oh yeah, she can't wear much because she has to breathe through her skin. It's like you could have done more with that, man. You could have not had that, like essentially not worded it so that the design would end up that way. Because it's like, give her thin clothes, like something like that. Like I don't know, give her something that's just more than that. Because yeah, it is a bit of a rough design, right? I think it is a bit of a rough design where it's like, yeah, it's one of the lesser of the series. Um, I'm curious to see if they change it for the anime. I kind of hope they do because it is a design that I hope changes. Remember when people were getting upset about like Liliana and all that getting censored? I remember that. I remember. And that shit died out immediately because there was like, I knew for a fact it was gonna die out because there was not that many people talking about it, but there were people trying to be loud about it. And I knew as soon as the anime was gonna start, people that were like anime only and all this were just going to actively talk about the show way more than any of that. And people not only anime onlys, but anybody that wasn't, they were going to talk about it way more, and it was going to drown out everything like that. And like I I didn't even understand why people wanted to complain about that stuff, solely because like it felt like one of the, I hate using the word because this isn't what the word is. but people love using the word LARP for like, oh yeah, just pretending to be into a series. That's what it felt like for a lot of people getting upset about that stuff being censored. Because it's like, no, if you're into the series, you would know that Liliana is like one of the least favorite designs for a lot of people. People did not like that design. Like that one and Arakia were rough. So I think most people are happy that they at least changed it up a little bit. Um, but I remember that being like a big argument. And like some people also pointed out Capella with it. I felt that was whatever because either way, it's a but it serves the same function. It doesn't really matter, right? Um, Still, but going back to the whole Arakia thing, yeah, I remember that was a big thing for Arakia. So I was like, I don't know about calling her one of the worst because of design, or not because of design, or like yeah, well actually yeah, because of design, simply because plot wise, I think she's pretty good, right? I do think design wise, and because of how her design is written in the story to lead up to that, yeah, she's not that great, right? But it's like I don't know. I think character wise, she is fine. The people said that about people said they also hated Puck, and that was a like weird thing for me as well because it's like, here's the thing: you can dislike a character in story, but I think it's weird to an extent. I don't know. To me, it always feels weird to an extent to outright dislike a character, like full stop, not even in story, whatever it may be, just dislike full stop solely because you really can't stand their actions, right? You can't like it's like, oh, they make me angry because of like the shit they do. It's like, yeah, I feel like that is I don't want to sound like an ass with this, but it's like I feel like that is the point, right? It is similar to how Priscilla early on does the shit she does, and it's meant to make you angry because it's like, yeah, it's Priscilla. This is like number one rage baiter, right? She is intentionally doing what she does to get a scenario to kind of, rise, right? So it makes sense for her to act like that, right? Again, Puck is of a similar degree where it's like, well, he's meant to be a shitty sort of figure for Amelia because it's like that's how he's written. You're not supposed to like him with all that. It's similar to Capella, right? Capella is supposed to make you angry. It's one of the reasons why she's my in my top 10. She's fantastic at that. She is like actual scum of the earth villain, right? But that makes her so damn great. So there was that. Then Petra was in there. And Petra was like the only character on there where I was like genuinely, why? Right? Puck, I could get to a degree off the factor that, okay, sure, right? Uh, if if you're angry about that sort of thing and that lessens the character for you, I guess I get it, right? Um, and then like Archaea, for example. Also, it's like I guess if we want to say designs make the character worse, sure. Petra was one I never understood people hating. Petra was a character that I was like, dude, I don't get it because she's written well. Her design is good. Like nothing about her is wrong, right? I feel like some people also seemed like mad about like, oh yeah, this like she like has this love for Subaru and all that, and it's like yeah, she's a kid. She's a kid watching somebody who she views as this idol, protect her and do stuff and all this sorts, and it's like yeah, she naturally has that sort of like feeling towards him. She's a kid. That's gonna happen. Kids do that. Like I don't know. That was a reaction to a character I never understood because it's like that just happens, man. That's just the natural order of how things work. And then also in general, outside of that, what else, right? I do remember some people saying she was annoying, and I'm like, I don't fully see how. I think there are other characters with I don't personally think are fully outright annoying, but have this different tune that they play that kind of reaches that point. outside of someone like Petra, because what the fuck would Petra do to even reach that point? Right? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. It was always so weird to me that that was a character people really disliked. A little bit more. And don't get me wrong, I 100% get it under the circumstance of uh how people interact with a character, bringing the opinion of that character down for you personally, right? If that sort of thing happens, I fully get it, right? That has happened before. I remember fucking like early JoJo. I'm talking when part 4 was coming out, because that's when I had started watching it, was when part 4 was coming out. Can you fucking believe that's been like 10 years already? Or some shit like that, or like nearly there. I think it has been like 10 years. It's either next year or this year, I don't remember, but it's like holy shit. Or maybe not. I don't remember. It's been a while. Um, but yeah, I remember with like early JoJo, I had the opinion of like Joseph, for me personally, lowered because of how much people would just constantly just make the same 247 jokes with him. And I was like, I was getting tired of it, right? Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. So like I get it to a degree with that sort of thing. And I could get it for Petra because yeah, listen, I will be blunt about it because I think it is fair to address. Yeah, there are some weird fans of these characters, right? There are some weird motherfuckers uh, who go a little too far with these characters and forget the fact they're kids. I don't care what your, opinion about, oh, but it's fictional. I don't give a shit about that. They're kids. I'm gonna absolutely be blunt about that. I cannot stand that shit. Um, so 100% I get it in that scenario, right? When it's that sort of thing of you interact with someone like that, and then it's like, yeah, naturally, I would be like, yeah, I could imagine that would sully the opinion of the character as a result because you have to associate it with that, right, by proxy. I get that, but outside of that, sorry, I didn't mean to hit the mic there. Outside of that, I like in terms of actual just Petra in the story, I can't understand it. I know I rambled for a while there, but it's like I wanted to address that. Um, yeah, I don't know. Again, I cannot stand that shit though. That is the one thing I can agree with people on. I have seen that shit for Petra. I have seen people act like that towards Melee and all this, and I'm like, dude, this is fucking gross, right? I see that shit and it actually makes me upset. Uh, yeah. Let's uh, let's get back to this because I think honestly talking about that more is going to make me upset. Ugh. Okay, right back into it. Witch of Tristia, Petrolite, had confronted the battle with an unshakable resolve. The witch factor she had received from Klein and the possibilities of the authority of Touristia it invoked were so extraordinary that it made her believe no power in this world could match this authority's efficacy in rigging the game in one's favor. So naturally, in order to wield such power, worthy compensation was required. As the saying went, with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man! Maybe it was a bit different. Either way, since she was deliberately taking on those enormous drawbacks, oh man, that just reminded me. I can't fucking wait for the Spider-Man in a month. That's gonna be awesome. She had to make sure that the benefits would play their part to the fullest. If she could not manage that, then Petra, having resolved to keep lying even to her loved ones, would never find peace. I'm glad Frederica Nesama isn't here. If Frederica had joined the Aldebusters, Petra was not sure if she would be able to keep up the lie. Rather than it being a matter of Frederica's insight, Petra was simply weak to did I just? No, I said that. Petra was simply weak to Frederica. In Frederica's presence, Petra's heart lay bare. She owed her too much love and respect to be able to hide anything. Surely, she would have ended up pouring out everything she felt in her heart, crying, depending, and clinging onto Frederica. If it were just a matter of keeping things hidden, the same thing could have been said about Ram and Otto when they were in top shape. Only Ram was in a merry mood, merry mood thanks to the restoration of Rem, and Otto, without his memories, could not fully exhibit his natural insight, so neither of them had noticed Petra's lie. I wonder exactly how much Klein Nisima knew about it, and still chose to overlook. Age unknown and motives unclear, yet still believed to be an ally at the very least, it would have not been strange if Klein had entirely seen through all of Petra's intentions. But on the other hand, perhaps it would not have been so strange for him to be completely blind to the subtleties of the human heart, given how close he was with Roswell. Either way, right at the beginning of all this, Klein knew that Petra had made an enormous sacrifice. I see a massive wall there. His position was thus one in which either outcome was conceivable, that she would offer up nothing else, having already paid such a huge price, or that she would easily offer up more, having already paid once. In that case, it worked best for Petra to interpret it as a silent push of encouragement for her resolve. Regardless of Klein's true intentions, Petra had rolled the dice. By now, how many have I done? To never be, to never pen a missive, to never clutch a stuffed animal, to never. Okay, yeah, I'm. There were a lot, but this is obviously all the vows we have read thus far, which is fucking crazy to see in retrospect. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hold on. Sorry, the two there was cut off, so I couldn't tell. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. Assuming I counted that correctly, that is about 44 of them, which is, yeah, wow. There'd be no end to it if she began to count everything she had offered as compensation. It can even be said that Petra had a very bleak life ahead of her. Even so, it's still quite a bit better than it could be. The trick to telling a good lie was to mix in a grain of the truth. That was a well-known maxim, and Petra's lie had ended up taking on a similar nuance. The price for the authority of Touristia was being paid not just by the holder, Petra, but also by a great number of other people. That was a condition Petra had proposed to everyone's consent for her to take on the witch factor. However, this method could only compensate for compressions focused on the authority's effective target. If Amelia desired a compression to move herself, it's possible to be invoked with the compensation from Amelia. But if Petra thought Amelia was in danger and used compression to move her, it would have been Petra who paid the compensation. This was something that only the holder could be aware of. Every little conference between the Aldebusters, when she tossed Al to the Agzad Canyon, together with Amelia and Rem, whenever she promptly withdrew her allies out of sticky situations, she had compressed everyone's vehement pain into a single instance. Petra had been the one to pay the compensation for all of that. She believed the more precious a sacrifice was, the greater capacity would be for the effects of the authority of Touristia. Whenever it influenced the world, it also weakened Petra's own ability to interfere with that world. Petra were to ever simply offer up her entire life, the witch factor of Touristia would likely bring about an even greater power. But I won't do that. Even if the authority encroached on Petra Lighty, making her sell off her life bit by bit, diminishing her hopes for the future, and making her relinquish a great deal of happiness, Petra would never do anything like throwing her life away in despair or resorting to other such extreme options. That sort of thing. It's uncool. She did not want to show him any part of herself that was uncool. She did not want to do anything that was uncool. During her fight against the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, Roy Alfred, it was the same. So long as those feelings continued to sustain her, Petra would never compromise her sense of self. After all, to the stars, Petra would. Petra Lighty would. That's good. How to never hold up the back of another. Span territory, matrix redefinition. Why must I go through this sort of thing? Did I do something bad? I've been a good girl, haven't I? I tried to be a good girl, you know. So why and how did things end up like this? Someone explain it already. Let's get 'em, you bastards. Yeah. What should I do? I've tried just about everything, you know. I've done it all countless times, you know. I've tried everything or every last thing that I could manage to come up with. I fought and won, you know. I fought and lost, you know. I fought and let him die, you know. I fought and died, you know. I died without fighting, you know. I ran away, you know. I shed tears, you know. Stars. Stars were bad. I tried dying so many times. I tried finishing him off so many times. I tried running away so many times. I apologized to him so many times. I raged at him so many times. I cried to him so many times. It's all so, so scary. It's all so, so painful. It's all so, so agonizing. Play ball. Thought so. It never ends, does it? He won't let it end, will he? Even now, in this moment as he listens to my weeping, he refuses to show any concern. He'll just end up forgetting after the 10 seconds anyways. Hmm. It's not that he'll forget. He'll just cease to know. He'll leave me behind. He'll leave me, and only me, behind. Expand territory. I'm sick of it. Tired of it. Or I'm sick and tired of it. I hate everyone. I hate them. I hate them. I absolutely loathe them. Why won't they try and help me? Even though I'm crying out as hard as I can like this, why won't they? It never ends. It won't end. He won't let it end, and he won't let me end it. Even now, I'm still, yeah. Even if I weep, even if I scream, even if I clamor, even if I curse, same events will just repeat, or endlessly repeat. Amazing. I was mistaken. I was so conceited to think that I might be able to do something about this. My reliable? Even though they won't do anything for me? Well, whatever. My reliable allies. Just who are they again? That woman and the like. They're all supposed to be amazing. So then, why couldn't they overcome this? The stars, or stars were bad. Or it's the stars, sorry. But here's the thing. I know. I've known all along. After all, it can't be helped. More and more and more and more. I'm becoming unable to think straight. I'm losing all interest in the things happening before my eyes. That's not it. It's not that I'm losing interest. I'm just trying to distance myself from all of it. I even know the reason why. After all, I don't want to hate everyone or anything like that, but whenever I think about everyone else, I just end up hating them all for not doing anything for me. So I'll stop. I won't think. To make sure I won't end up hating them, I'll stop thinking. I just won't think about anyone. I don't care about those people at all. Ah, that's wrong. Sorry, that's a big fat lie. I love them all. Yes, love them. Well, no, yeah, this is real rough for her. Well, it can't be helped, can it? I'm still a child after all. I can't just grow up and become an adult all of a sudden. If I just stay here forever like this. I'm gonna wait a minute. I'm gonna wait a minute. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna keep reading. I'm gonna wait a minute. I just realized something. Repeating the same moment again and again. Will I eventually become a grown up? Well, sorry to say, but I won't. After all, it's just the same moment in time that's repeating. No matter how hard I try, it's always the same. It's always the same no matter how hard I try. Wouldn't it be fine to just stop trying? Yeah, that's right. Or yes, that's right. Trying my best has been meaningless. It's always the same. Ha. Trying my hardest all for nothing. Let's just stop thinking about such difficult things. Ha. Trying my hard. Whoa, the font changing is interesting. I like that. Uh, Trying my hardest all for nothing. It was all completely meaningless. I've been doing things for no reason this whole time. Right, that's right. Thought so. I tried my hardest from the start, so it can't be helped, can it? Even if I try my best, it's not like I can become king. It's not like I'll be cherished. It's not like I could get married to that person, so it can't be helped anymore. Can't be helped. Can't be helped, so let's just end it already. Why? Giving up isn't easy, is it? Or wait, oh, sorry. There's nothing that can be helped, or that can't be helped. Why? Giving up isn't easy, is it? But it can be easy. Why? What for? In heart folds, or even when you die, those are nothing but scratches. Why? What for? You really still saying all that? That's why. Why? What for? You really still saying that? Or all that? What then? That's why. Why? What for? You really still. Then we can still do this. It'll be a piece of cake. Really, he is such a bad liar. Thought so. Vowed to never give up, never bend the knee. Oh shit! Never bend the knee, never regret my choices, never cry bitter tears, never forget that which I have loved. Ooh, ooh. Ah, all right. Yeah, Petrolite was a country girl born in the Arlem village in the kingdom of Lagunica. The original Petra was not a girl who would have ever participated in a battle to decide the fate of the world. As a mere village girl, she would have either lived a somewhat good life with her cuteness and shrewd nature, or been engulfed in one of the world's great billows, ruthlessly scattering her life to the waves. That was all she had been. And straying off from that original route, the weird route, and getting to know her current self, Petra had a flaw. Even if I could redo my life over and over, I'd still choose to stray from the original. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I noticed was as soon as it brought up the whole vow to never give up, it's like, oh yeah, this is endless. This is endless. Al has no idea it's endless, and Petra physically can't get out of it because she made that vow. That's wild. That's so good. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Um, yeah, damn. Oof. Just actual, yeah, we're gonna be stuck here for the rest of time, essentially. But obviously, there'll be some sort of conclusion. Straying off the original route and getting to know her current self, Petra had a thought. Or wait, yeah, we did that. Yes, that's right. Straying from the original, Petra would always end up arriving here. And so, Petra wished to say this to you, the one who saved me and steered me off my original path, and to you, the one who's trying your best to lead me by the hand with those lousy lies and anguished expressions. I have this to say. It's thanks to the stars that I can be here today. With those words, Petra wiped her lips with the back of her mouth or back of her mouth. Back of her, she literally took her mouth and went like SpongeBob bit. Uh, with those words, Petra wiped her lips with the back of her hand, uh, leaving both Al and Subaru at a complete loss for words. Setting Al aside, she knew the reason for Subaru's speechlessness. He must have thought that his own lousy lie and attempts at encouragement had gotten Petra so depressed that she would never be able to speak. Certainly, it had been a lousy lie. The trick to a good lie was to mix in a little, or at least a little bit of the truth. She had even just mentioned it. This lie, however, has failed to mix in any fragment of the truth whatsoever. Truly a lousy lie of the highest degree. But I don't want to let that person I love become a liar after all. A little bit further down. And so she got back on her feet through her own efforts. He could rely on neither comfort nor encouragement, so he had to keep watching over her with such worry, trying to pat her head and support her back, though he knew he could not touch her, and seeing his admirable, desperate appearance, she finally thought to herself that there was no helping it. Falling in love was her weakness. The person I love isn't a liar. After all, she had stood up like this, Petra had stood, so Subaru was not a liar. The repeating world had been an agony. Revitalizing a heart that had come so close to dying was no easy feat. In fact, it was the most difficult thing she had ever done in her entire life up until this point. But she stood. She had gone back up. Because right by her side, there was a person who always believed in the weak, pathetic, and clumsy Petra. There's not a single thing bad about my stars. Amazing. The fact that I have to try my hardest to no matter what is tough. Even though I'm usually pretty clever, even though I usually succeed at anything right away, living up to this person's expectations is really tough. But even when she found herself in a hell so terrible that it would have crushed the hearts of anyone else and left them unable to stand, a hell that made her go through the same movement, or not movement, moment, however many hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of times, this person continued believing in her for no good reason whatsoever, saying Petra won't lose, so she had no choice but to push forward. Natsuki Subaru believed that Petra was a girl so tough that her heart would not break even after looping tens of thousands of times, then she would make it so. You see, isekai girls need to be at least able to make miracles happen on their own, or else they won't be able to get by. After all, she had never strayed off that original rails of fate. She would have never even met the person she now adored from the bottom of her heart. Alsan, no matter how many times this repeats, I think it's pointless. Having interrupted his signature phrase about blaming the stars or whatever, Petra declared thus toward the silent owl. This was no bluff. Oh, no, yeah. That is like crazy to think about because it's like, yeah, Subaru had like a lot in arc 6, a lot in arc 7 via the like the 10-second loop, which I guess wasn't like an absurd amount in comparison to the arc 6 one, but was still hefty. Um but still nowhere near this much. Petra's actually Petra's in the middle of both of them, where Al has looped the most. Then there's Petra, then there's Subaru at the bottom, shockingly. Um, yeah, this is no bluff or brave front, but rather Petra's true beliefs. Even if this interval repeated far beyond the realm of tens of thousands of times and entered the realm of billions or even trillions, you would not be able to wear Petra down. After all, a girl's love was infinite. There's no fairy tale solution like that either. This is a loop that repeats until your opponent's or your enemy's heart is fully expended, right, Alsan? No, yeah. Yeah. It's like, oof. Ha. All in a fraction of like less than a minute for Petra. And just thousands, right? Oof. Even when she triumphed against Al, even when she killed him, even when she sent him far, far away, it did not end. Even when she was defeated by Al, even when she was caught by him, even when she ran far, far away, it did not end. Even when she killed herself, even when she was killed, even when she tried to abandon everything in despair, it did not end. Simply put, even though it had repeated over tens of thousands of times, it did not end. But the point that it's cut off ought to be decided by you, right, Alsan? The way to put an end to an endless loop, you cannot imagine it being or anything other than Al undoing the territory. The loop was likely nothing so convenient that it would end on its own once the target's heart was shattered. The timing to end it would always need to be consciously executed by the Al inside the loop. Ultimately, she got Al to throw in the towel, and this loop could have ended or on the very first go around without even needing to reach 10,000 tries. All that was needed was to make the cautious and cowardly Al of the initial loop decide to do so. So, I'd like you to cut it off here. Other than me, everyone else has already collapsed. So your fruits of battle should be sufficient, Al-san. Even if you continue this, it will just be meaningless. Let it be said once more, so no bluff or brave front from Petra. Even if this loop were repeated for the rest of eternity, Petra's heart would not break. After all, Petra had made her choice. You see, I'm no longer able to give up. I can't have regrets either, nor can I have cry tears of frustration. And I'll never be able to forget all the people whom I love so much. That's the sort of witch I've become. After all, Petra had chosen to become the witch of Touristia. Hey, Alsan, how many more times are we going to have this conversation? Indeed, the witch of Touristia's question, a faint hum rumbled in Al's throat. It was apparent that his eyes, hidden under the veil of the steel helm, had begun to smolder with emotions of dusky black upon discovering something inscrutable deep within the witch of Touristia's own round eyes. By some chance, perhaps that might have been related to an unfading scar, rooted in the very depths of Al's heart. Perhaps in some time long past, he had peered deep into the eyes of a witch, only to be wounded in the process. On that trauma, she would compress agony, compressing the trauma. Yeah. Also, yeah, I like it changing to Witch of Touristia. Also, fucking level 3 wake up. She hit him with a level 3 wake up out of nowhere, just like, hey Al, yeah, we should stop this, all this, get him to pause in the moment, go, cool, purple. Oh, that's hilarious. That's fucking hilarious. Hit him with a raw level 3. Yeah, no, like that is something that like only someone like a kid knight could tank it, and it's just like, oh, maybe I have to change my statement earlier about Al. We'll find out. Compressing the trauma Al carried, she forced it onto him, boiling his brain, reversing the flow of his blood, then peeling the scabs off all his unhealed wounds of joy, lamentation, happiness, and sorrow. She rubbed it in, not salt, but trauma. A stimulus of trauma so potent that he would go on to shed tears several dozens, hundreds, and thousands of times whenever he recalled it in his life here to come. In that instant, she made him taste it with a concentration of 1,000-fold. Literally, not even my voice is starting to crack because of all this. Not even a wake up level 3. She did a level 7, like insta kill, fuck you bullshit. Like I'm using everything at once. Oh man. Uh, sorry, I wanted to look down to see if that, because I saw game set there. I'm like, are we actually at the end? All right, there we go. That moment with the dread he harbored towards the Witch of Touristia, the compression of his stimulated trauma, Owl reacted not with his body, but with his soul, reaching out for the relief most familiar and accessible to him. That was to say, game set. The way to put an end to an endless loop was to force the start of the next loop. Arriving at that conviction, the Witch of Touristia entwined her hand with the intangible hand of her beloved, smiling at their fingertips overlapped. How uncool. If it was Subaru, would have put on a brave front and said that a fractured heart's nothing but a scratch. You are just way too cool, Petra. With a sense of powerlessness, yet brimming with pride, her beloved spoke those words to her. As those words filled the Witch of Tristia's heart, she continued to face forward. Now then, this was it, the final showdown. Her wounded heart, the weakness that had made her wish to end it all, and the tears she had shed in regret, because she had offered all those as compression. The Witch of Touristia would not relent until victory was secured in the form she desired. Undoing the territory and tying it anew, he reconstructed his matrix. That was an admission of certain defeat for the imposition of the territory that ought to have been guaranteed a certain victory. But it could not be helped. That was a precedent, or there was a precedent. The territory could not kill a witch put in the position of the aggressor. Of course, the term kill was not being used literally here, as the target was purely restricted to the heart. But, having boldly proclaimed that she could endure the territory, Petra, or was Petra? No, he could no longer merely call her Petra. Without any exaggeration, she had undergone a complete transformation. The Witch of Touristia. In the past, the one who had broken through Aldebaran's aggressor of the territory was the Witch of Greed. Thinking back, regardless of whether it was a victim or aggressor, or the victim or the aggressor who took the initiative over the territory, bad omen always lingered over Aldebaran, or Aldebaran's authority as a trace of his defeat in his first battle. Regardless, even now that the territory had been brushed off, Aldebaran still had the advantage in this battle. Aside from the Witch of Touristia, the Aldebusters who were heralded the subjugation of Aldebaran had been wiped out. No, yeah, this is the first, as you put it, the first capital W witch in 400 years. He really does put like actual. I mean, it makes sense in this sort of scenario you would, but I never fully considered he does put like the caps on this sort of thing. Again, does make sense that you would do that in this sort of connotation because any divine being in that sort of manner you would, but mm. uh brushed off Aldebaran saw the advantage in this battle. Aside from the Witch of Touristia, the Aldebusters who had heralded the subjugation, yet unfortunately for them, the aberrations to the heart that came with using the territory were absolute. It's not as though Aldebaran had decided to impose the territory on them with a resolve so tepid as to allow them to escape it by acting or playing dead. That was precisely why he would have been severing one or two of the target's limbs as verification before he decided to transfer the territory onto the next target. Since that continuity did not exist within himself, he had no way of knowing exactly how he had ascertained that. But if his current self could think of it, ooh, excuse me, sorry, then the him inside the loop would have also been drawn into the same idea. Hence, he could say it with certainty. Aside from the Witch of Touristia, nobody would be able to stand. No, yeah, he traps a kid in there, and that kid again pops the raw level 5, level 7, whatever whatever we want to say, whichever game we want to go off of. I'm thinking both MVC and fighters here, and just and he does not block, he does not parry, he just eats that shit and has to deal with it. But that's something she should also be aware of. Uh, no, yeah, 40-year-old man, 40-year-old man that has had to endure like a billion scenarios of bullshit prior to this, and like years and years of stuff, and it's just like this is what gets him. If she had stood up, then her other allies would also get back up. Aldebaran could not afford to underestimate Witcher standing before him as one who would commence action on such a naive assumption. In that case, there had to be something. The Witcher had a plan to still turn the tables on him. The girl boasting of how the stars that had allowed her to be here today, even when transformed into a witch, had a trump card. With the territory undone, Aldebaran and the Witch of Touristia were in a momentary state of release, and while there was a distance of 5 meters between them, it was tantamount to nothing given the opponent's authority. Or rather, with an authority like compression, there was no peace of mind to be found at any distance whatsoever. But it was an authority. She was undoubtedly bound to make a move, playing the card in her hand known as the authority of Touristia. Naturally, the most likely possibility, given the effect of her authority, was to summon others forth using compression. The probable candidates were Little Miss Rem and Little Miss Melee, or maybe her Margrave Master. When he considered the potential personnel whom the Witch of Touristia could assemble and were not present here, the first ones to come to mind were those three. I'm not going to say it, but again, chapter titles. Rem ought to have been clashing against the highly admirable Ye, but since he had no he had not glimpsed any discomposure in Rem. Yeah, yeah, she's using this in a much stronger way than Client ever was. So much for the divine dragon's own kin, I guess. But so much for that. Uh, there was no taste of defeat that had been transmitted via the synthestation. It was difficult to imagine that Ye had been defeated, but he had now reached a stage where he had no choice but to consider it. Melee was accompanied by numerous witch beasts, and Roswell possessed monster tier firepower that he had even let loose back in the Empire. So Aldebaran believed they were both highly possible, but none of them would provide anything more than being strong and formidable. The fact that Aldebaran could not be driven into a corner with mere numbers or strength had been made very apparent up to this point. If that had been her aim, it could only be described as short sighted. No, it was not any one of them. Aldebaran could Inuit as much. Or, sorry, hold on. Ah, I'm feeling on my throat again. Okay. Aldebaran could intuit as much from the witch's Tristia's eyes. From the outset, his opponent had been compressing her thought processes, giving her the ability to deduce conclusions while completely dismissing the concept of time. Any idea that Aldebaran devised and discarded would have long been abandoned by the Witch of Touristia during her preliminary review. In other words, it was something different. He would need to alter his way of thinking at its very core in order to catch up. If the Witch of Touristia were to call someone here, it would be an entity capable of breaking this deadlock. Don't tell me. Gritting his teeth, his eyes widened, and in that moment, as if having waited to ascertain that spark in Aldebaran's synapses, the Witch of Touristia raised her hand overhead and brought it down. Instantly, compression took place. Thereupon, the one who appeared between Aldebaran and the Witch of Touristia, it was, wow, this is way more carnage than we thought. Yeah, I figured. Collapsed in handcuffs, his mobility constrained, it was Roy Alfred of Gluttony. Surely we don't. Hold on. I'm curious. I want to look. Surely there's not that much left. Because we went for a while there. Yeah, there's 2,000 words. Okay. We can easily just get this done. The moment. That said, like 2,000 words for all that. Oof. The moment he saw Roy dropped there, Aldebaran was convinced of his opponent's intentions. He had estimated the probability of Roy not being dead to be around 80%. To begin with, if they were attempting to save the victims of gluttony, Roy's survival was indispensable. With Rem's name actually having been regurgitated, the Aldebusters ought to have all been the more convinced of that fact. Regardless of how they would get him to cooperate, they would have realized that no negotiations could take place if they took his life. The remaining 20% chance of him dying stemmed from two possibilities: the prospect of a situation in which they could not devise a solution in which they could let him live, and the worry of Roy tending to instigate far too excessively, angering his opponents to the point where being killed would have been unavoidable. Either way, Roy's survival was fortuitous, but his opponent's aim was a problem. Rather than counterintuitively acting to serve the interests of her enemy, the Witch of Tricia would have naturally had a reason to go out of her way to summon Roy here. She would have had an objective. She would have had an objective. She would have had a secret agreement or something akin for Roy to work to her advantage. So, having made an inconceivable comeback after having read the Book of the Dead, she would have pieced together from Natsuki Subaru's knowledge the reason as to why the Witch of Envy had taken action. If she could figure that out, then there was a chain of possible actions she would have unlocked. That was getting Reinhard. Supposing the Witch of Touristia had colluded with Roy to have him use his authority, if it was the Witch of Touristia which shattered her own heart to the point where even the territory had no effect on her, it would not have been strange for her to opt for the ultimate self-sacrifice in order to recover Natsuki Subaru. That was an idea Aldebaran himself had, had also come to. The world's salvation via the authority of gluttony. To take an individual who read Natsuki Subaru's Book of the Dead and strip them of those memories. Yep, I kind of figured this is where it was going. Then the Witch of Envy would withdraw, the deterring force of the world, who had been stuck keeping her at bay, would come. The Sword Saint, whom he had successfully surmounted through numerous attempts and traps, would come. If the Sword Saint, Reinhard van Estrella, were to arrive here, that would be the end. His plan would come crumbling down. Hence, Aldebaran poured the entirety of his soul into preventing that outcome. Roy Alfred of Gluttony, summoned to the scene via the authority of Touristia, he would, if forbidden from devouring memories, would be scorched by that curse mark. Once again, he tightened the conditions that previously had been slackened. Being the one who applied the curse mark, the repeated modifications to the conditions also caused serious damage to Aldebaran's soul, and he could feel his odd fissuring deep within his body. It was not a feeling of pain, but rather a profound sense of loss, the sensation of one's very core being undermined, something that Natsuki Subaru was also said to have experienced. But with this, he averted the crisis of Roy eating the Witch of Tourista's memories. So long as the Witch of Envy did not withdraw, Sword Saint would be hindered from Alsan reaching this place. In that moment, he subconsciously clenched his fist. Before he could even finish that thought, it had occurred. The Witch of Touristia had called to Aldebaran. Her plans derailed. He thought she would surely ought to have been making a bitter face. Certainly, a painful expression adorned her countenance, sorry. But that was not the visage lamenting her own failure. It was a look that it was one that looked at him in pity. As a shudder ran down his body, Aldebaran contemplated the meaning of the Witch of Touristia's expression. But that had been a mistake. Thinking had been a mistake. Rather than thinking, he ought to have killed himself immediately. If he died now, then no matter what it was, he would have still managed to make it through somehow. But once again, when it mattered most for Aldebaran, die he could not. Just like when he had failed to keep the sun of this world from setting, once again he could not. Play ball. It transpired in that moment, as the Witch of Touristia spoke that line to Aldebaran had intended to say, but had failed to get the chance. The natural enemy of Aldebaran was now standing right behind him. Let's go further down. I'm gonna take a drink. Mm, mm. I do want to double check something right now. How long have we been going on? 2 hours? I mean, I guess I expected it with the chapter length, but damn. I mean, again, we've gotten faster with this sort of thing, but yeah, yeah, play ball. Here we go. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, again, we'll see on the next chapter in terms of length. I am not opposed to the idea of doing it Monday, Tuesday for the rest of the stuff, but we'll see. Right, we'll see what the next chapter's length is, and I'll decide from there. Because if it's absurdly long, uh, again, like longer than I'd say 7,000 words or something like that, maybe we'll save that for Monday, and I'll split up Monday into Tuesday as well. So it's like it's less to work with, but it is still a decent bit. I think I might know Alsan's weak point. Before the Aldebusters had officially formed, I also wouldn't have made this decision if I didn't like pass out for an extra hour. Uh, I mean, I guess not really pass out, but taking that nap for an extra hour. If I had actually chosen to wake up, because I think I had set my original alarm for like 6:30. If I had actually chosen to wake up around then, I probably would have had no issues here. Uh, but it was fine. It was a decision I essentially made. That was a realization that Petra who would go on to become the Witch of Touristia, had come to. Or I didn't even read prior to that. The Thousand Busters had officially formed during the strategy held to approach the defeat of the Owl Troop. That was a realization that Petra, who would go on to become the Witch of Touristia, had come to. When she had learned from Ramji's testimony, that Al's authority was a looping ability. Ooh, excuse me, sorry. Similar to Natsuki Subaru's own return by death. Petra had reasoned that its activation condition was also the same as Subaru's. Then there ought to be a way to thwart it. But then again, it's not as though she could tell for certain at that point. Next chapter is 5. Okay, sick. Yeah, no problem. I'll do it. I'll do it then. Swag. Thank you very much for checking that for me. Because I didn't want to open up the next chapter and then worry about seeing art or anything like that. So yeah, thank you so much for that. But yeah, if it's that short, we'll do it. We'll do it. I'll go right into it after this. I'm not even gonna take a break. I'll go right into it. Just because of timing, right? But I'll go right into it. I probably will get water. Maybe that's what I'll do. Because I am pretty low. So I'll probably get water and then we'll go right into it. Uh, Petra had reason that its activation condition was also similar. So there ought to be a way to port it. And again, it was not as though she could tell for certain at that point. As for whether or not the method would be viable, there was a need to verify it with the person in question. But aside from the one-sided acquaintance through the Book of the Dead, Petra had essentially 0 points of contact with her. No, with him. But thinking that it might be possible, she had gone in contact with him before the Aldebusters commenced their operation, and had promised that she would only call him to the pitching mound as the ultimate trump card when they had truly pushed Al to the absolute limit. Thus, play ball. While getting revenge with the declaration that had been spoken to her over and over again, the Witch of Touristia looked at Al, lying beyond Roy Alfred, whom she had situated between them as a decoy. Alas, Al had acted exactly as the Witch of Touristia had intended, in exact accordance with her wishes. Imagine that if he saw Roy, he would presume that she was aiming to employ his authority. This was Roy, who had cut a secret deal with Felt, harboring a rebellious spirit against Al. If he had come by the opportunity to learn of the fact amidst his turning back time, then he predicted that he would foster doubt towards Roy's intentions. Sure enough, Al had acted just as she had hoped, choosing to seal off Roy's betrayal. Listen, I saw the volume cover already for what's next. I knew some absurd like surface level, like surface visual level stuff, right? I just failed to consider it might be here. I failed to consider it might start here. The fact that at the same time as Roy, the Wichitarista's trump card had appeared right behind him would have likely completely transcended the realm of his consideration. He had likely failed to even imagine that this person might have been here. The 61 Aldebusters who had fought in this battle represented the total strength that Amelia Kemp and the Feldkamp had managed to assemble. There was no falsehood in those words. Indeed, that was the total number of participants from the Amelia Camp and Feldkamp. Hence, completely worn out, aren't you now? Let's heal it up for you, okay? Even if one scoured the entire world, they would never find any greater healer. That instant, the highest tier of healing magic belonging to the blue, Pyrrhus, wrested death out from Al's grasp. This hairstyle looks like the way the hair is drawn here is familiar. Is this? I don't know that it is, but I'm wondering if it's an artist I'm thinking of. Probably not. I don't know. It might be. We'll find out. We'll find out when we're done. The blue, Felix Argyll, better known as Pyrrhus, the one and only knight of the royal candidate Crush Karsten, and the greatest practitioner of healing magic in the kingdom, nay, the greatest in the world. Thus, he was the last of Aldebaran's three natural enemies. Yep, big Pyrrhus in the house. He was the final barrier whom Aldebaran could not afford to encounter, having already set aside Natsuki Subaru and the Sword Saint, Reinhard van Estrella, for the sake of his plan. And so, upon Aldebaran, he applied magic that was tender and merciful, yet undoubtedly cruel. Ah, Gah! The moment all of his hairs on his back stood on edge, Aldebaran resolutely spun around, and shoving the person who stood who stood behind him, furious, to the ground, he undid the packet of poison within his mouth. Instantly dissolving on the membranes of his tongue, it elicited a tremendous threat to Aldebaran's facilities of life, and would deliver him onto death in a mere few seconds. No longer. Yep, the tissue that ought to have been crumbling apart was thoroughly restored, and even the nosebleed that had begun to gush forth beneath his helmet had ceased within a single second. Fuck. On account of this, he created an impromptu stone dowel, and placing it against his own neck, he slashed it with all his strength. Having severed a thick artery, blood gushed out with terrific force. With that, Aldebaran's life was under no threat whatsoever. The wound healed instantly, and he felt no more pain than about the prick of a needle. Fuck, fuck, fuck. He had been played. As far as he knew, this was the most terrifying, most effective way to seal Aldebaran. The method to seal return by death was nothing special. It was simply to prevent them from dying. That was all it took. The very means by which to kill Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru lay in the gentlest hands that this world had seen. This is the end, all son. Indeed, the Richard Touristia calmly apprised Aldebaran as he lost his composure in such an unseemly manner. He could not die. He could not redo. Seeing Pyrrhus on the ground beside him, he considered dispelling the healing magic, but it's not happening. Or do you really want to try having a pointless contest of endurance with Fury Chan? Pyrrhus, whose expression did not budge even with the sword thrust before him, was likewise an individual who had sealed his resolve to take on this challenge. Pyrrhus was applying the same healing magic upon himself that he was currently using on Aldebaran, and no matter how he struggled, he had no chance of dispelling Pyrrhus's magic here. In other words, right here and now, Aldebaran needed to decide on what to. There is nobody who can defeat you, you who I created. Once again, he had heard the witch's voice. Just then, it happened. A ruinous shockwave was bird from. Yeah, I knew it was coming. Bird from afar, and with terrific vigor, it swallowed Aldebaran, the Witch of Touristia, and all others present at the final stage in a one monumentous swoop. I knew it was coming because I'm like, we haven't looked at the geyser yet. I was gonna say we haven't looked at the geyser yet. That assist was by no means something the Divine Dragon had intended to bring about. With the battlefield having shifted, a clash against the rightful owner of the Dragon Husk unfolded, and upon the perforation of its dragon halo by the hyper magic of miracles manifested by the two magicians, the Divine Dragon had a monumentous choice. Rather than pursuing its own immediate victory in that moment, it had opted instead to prioritize the purpose, the wish, and the long cherished desire it had set out to fulfill together with its original self. Haran! The final breath unleashed by the dragon aimed for neither the dragonkin nor the magicians, dashing straight towards a land far in the distance. True to its aim, it landed a direct hit upon the ultimate destination that ought to be reached. The colossal hole that penetrated the land, said to be the deepest and darkest in all the world, tunneling to its very bottom, the Grand Mogulad Geyser. The cataclysmic devastation it had been wrought, alongside the astonishment it had been caused throughout the world, went beyond all description. Even upon this battlefield, it came surging forth as a great wave of earth. Towards the battlefield of Aldebaran and the Witch of Touristia, the precise moment of the conclusion, the tremendous undulation, sorry, surged forth. Completely oblivious to those circumstances, Aldebaran was engulfed in a fierce torrent of water and plumes of dust billowing forth. Widening his eyes at the arrival of a once in a lifetime opportunity, the truest sense of the phrase, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know what's funny? Last time we talked about the geyser, this tells you how long it's been actually. Last time we talked about the whole geyser thing, uh, I referenced Deltarune because it was like relatively close, I think, in months and everything. Because I think it was like, when was the last review I did? Let's double check that. I think it was relatively close in terms of like, I'm gonna say months that it would have been, right? Yeah, so 8 months ago, which would be October. So that's a few months off, but it was July going into October, and it was like relatively on the mind still. You know, one of my favorite games, probably my favorite game of the year, but you know what I mean. I referenced that, and now I was tempted on referencing it again. And guess what? Literally like next week, literally on Wednesday. It's kind of ironic. There's no doubting that this was an opportunity beyond anything Aldebaran could have hoped for. His ultimate chance. This was no scheme devised by the Witch of Touristia, but rather a rare stroke of luck that worked in his favor. Something that ought to have been seldom occurred in Aldebaran's life. A resource he had ought to have fully expended when he had met Priscilla. Her His shock lasted for but a moment. Yet, as Aldebaran was buffeted by the wind and rain, he strained his eyes across the battlefield shrouded in fog, searching for that which he had needed. His target was neither the Witch of Touristia, nor Pyrrhus, nor the fallen Aldebusters. Here, on this battlefield, there existed the sole final measure that Aldebaran could still take. With death obstructed and his allies lost, the final method by which Aldebaran could still fulfill the long-cherished desire he had strived towards alongside the witch. Someone who no longer existed anywhere, but within himself. That was, Roy, if you're there, then come out. Come out and come and eat my name. Oh, damn. Updating the conditions of the curse mark with reckless abandon, he once again tasted in the sensation of his odd, fissure under the enormous burden, and with the resolve to make his very soul spew forth blood, Aldebaran screamed. To return his situation to zero, that was the one and only stratagem Aldebaran could still take with his authority having been sealed. Uh, by having his name eaten and vanishing from everyone's memories, he would turn it all back around. For that purpose, Aldebaran searched for the revolting form of gluttony amidst the dense veil of dust, and screamed, eat me! My name is Christian Aldebaran, the one condemned to carry the fate of the falling star. By ridding the world of Natsuki Subaru, he would grant the witch her wish long prayed. Despite bearing such a destiny, he scorched with yearning for the sun, and as a result, he had lost everything, left as naught but a worthless wretch. That person, his name, No, I know that as much. Um, that I'm at least glad about. I will point that out. I am so glad that was deconfirmed because like that always didn't seem right to me. That seemed so obvious as a twist. So I'm glad that that's not the case. I it's just I'm just stunned locked seeing the name because again, obviously it's not, but like I don't know, it just it took me out of it for a moment. It took me out. I started, yeah. That person, his name was Regal, Natsuki Regal. Yeah, it's a flare to be hit by because it's like okay, seeing Natsuki and there's a big deal, seeing that and there's a big deal because that's also a star, right? So regardless, uh, obviously if you've read the ifs, that's even more of a flashbang to be hit by. But you know, again, doesn't immediately like mean it's that. It's just a matter of it's the same as seeing uh it's the same as seeing like Rui and being like, oh, now she's Spica, and it's like, well, okay, like that was a name that was used in the if, but it's being used here because it's like, oh, look, this figure that they're both taking care of, it fits, right? This is just like this is a lot to unload. This is a lot to unload. It's a lot. The foolish star who had betrayed the witch's expectations and had plunged the sun into a never-ending night that was ending. That was ending. What? Why did I put that in there? That was his name, is what I meant to say. Never-ending night, like the like the delta, like the delta. No. Wow, wow, wow. I need to go back and like all that art. I need to. Oh, fuck, dude. Fuck. Oof. Oof. Yeah, what the fuck am I supposed to say? God, all the Petra art is so good. Yeah, this Furious art reminds me of a specific artist style that I think I do follow on Twitter, but it's like, oh man. Uh yeah, I mean that's fair. That is very I think there is I think there's a lot to unpack with it as a result of that, and there's again the whole adoption plot point is like the big thing that we've seen throughout the arc in terms of some of this stuff with the characters, but it's like, oh, that's a lot. That is a lot to unpack. Wow. Okay. So I am going to head into the next chapter right when I get back. I'm just gonna fill up on water because you may notice a magic trick here. It's empty. So yeah, I'm gonna fill up on water. I'm also actually I think I'll grab a can of iced tea just for the sake of my throat, keeping things nice. I think I will grab a can and then I'll also have some water on the side just cuz. Yeah, no, it's oof, oof. Wow. What a actual like absurdly loaded chapter. Huh. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna let my thoughts fester for a minute while I grab stuff. I will be right back. Give me like a few minutes, and we will return with the next chapter, and we'll finish off for tonight. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Yeah, be right back. Chat, I'm going to do something horrifying. Truly, deeply horrifying. Hold on. It takes a moment to do this horrifying thing. I also have to adjust this a little bit. There we go. It's truly horrifying. I'm sitting now. Let's do this. Alright. Got my stuff. We're good to go. Yeah, wow. Fuck. I was like thinking about the whole time I was down. I'm like, man. Huh. What a cliffhanger to be hit by. This, because here's the thing. Tepei's like on and off when he uploads chapters. For like, I know for me, right? I like to do them in bulk. So like, I have like Act 2 chapters coming out right now. And it's like, well, yeah, there's a new one tomorrow. And there'll be a new one in 2 days after that. So like around Tuesday. And then there's a new one on Thursday, right? So I like to do them just bulk. I like to be like, okay, I have the whole arc done. Boom. Like, bam, bam, bam. Just essentially bi-daily, drop them like that. But Tepei's like a lot of different online offers who will just obviously drop a chapter as soon as it's good to go, right? This is the rough draft anyway, so who cares? You know, drop it as soon as it's good to go. Um, so it's valid. I think personally, like it is valid in terms of doing that. But I can't imagine. I've said this about other chapters as well. This one in particular, though, it's like I can't imagine if there was a shit ton of time between that chapter to this one, I can't imagine how that felt as a cliffhanger. And like, I know how draining writing can be, especially when you're writing for a while. That last chapter's hefty. I know for a fact that man probably took a break for a day or two, or like had to have, right? Like just for a day or two, just like kind of slept or some shit. Like, no, yeah. See, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that this was like just explosion with like ah. I can't imagine. I wish I was reading this on time, like if I could have, and I wasn't just getting caught up with all sorts of shit. Because it's like, man, this would have been so fun to read, just as soon as it dropped. I can't wait to be back on that sort of schedule, or at least try for that. Like try for just constantly being back on top of it, because we were for a point, for a point in time we were. Um, but yeah, it's like, oh, I can't fucking imagine what this was like. It's crazy that by now this is like I'm saying this with quotations, but this is old, right? By now this has happened a while ago, and it's just like, man, I'm glad I didn't find out a single thing. I'm glad I didn't find. I have seen the only art I have gotten on my Twitter feed in regards to this, because I haven't gotten text spoilers. Uh, no, yeah, like that sort of thing just never sat right with me. It just didn't seem correct. It felt really obvious. I because with how Tepe's writing is, I don't think Tepe does the obvious sort of thing. I love making theories, right? We know this by now. Look at fucking some of the older ReZero videos I made, right? I made videos talking about like who's gonna fight Capella and what makes most sense. And oh, it'd be cool to go to Gusteco for an arc, right? And all this sort of stuff. I have talked about this series and had theories and stuff like that for a while. Yeah, that's the thing is he likes debate. He likes to have red herrings. I like doing that too, right? I love writing red herrings. So that shit is awesome. It's fun to throw people off. Um, but it felt way too obvious to do Al and Subaru are the same person, because they always had like those details sprinkled in there that it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. That seems too on the nose. That seems too on the nose, because like, also otherwise what then, right? If he was, what do we even go off of then? What is the implication for how Al is this way? Uh yeah. Yeah, no, uh it's real funny. Like, again, I think no, yeah, that is like also a big point to make, is like him talking about TMNT is like odd, because we know we know the stuff that Subaru is into. We know all this sort of shit. We have I mean, I know the anime technically like isn't the perfect way to look at it, but in a sense, it gives a visual idea of like, we've seen Subaru's room. We know the types of like different things he's into, and it's like it's a lot of, different mangas and animes and all that. We see it in the story when he starts talking about Kurapika, and he makes the Hidebu sound from Fist of the North Star and all this sort of shit. And like, yeah, it's like, and Subaru thinks of Naruto, and it's like, it's that thing where it's like, we know he's into a shit ton of this stuff, but like, we know for a fact as a result of that it's like, yeah, if Al's thinking about TMNT, this is not even remotely the same thing, dude. Unless Subaru has this like weird, out of nowhere inserted interest where he's like, I also really like TMNT, right? Then it becomes odd. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It never sat right with me. And just off like the basis of how it worked, anyways, it's like, I don't know. I fully believed. I'm gonna say what Al was saying at the beginning to be true of like No, yeah. I fully believed what Al said at like the third arc to be true of like, him also being isekai there. And obviously you can make that argument for Subaru as a result. But more so what I mean with that is like I believed in the firm fact that okay, the like all three of the isekai people we know are entirely different. Right? It's like every single one of them is entirely different. And I had that firm belief the whole time. No matter what they kind of threw at me, I went, I don't know. Like again, a little too obvious, and it would feel kind of weird because we're establishing that there are multiple characters who have gone through this, right? It's similar to obvious thing, but like Flugel. It's like I don't know. I think that is a Flugel is a bit of a multi-layered cake right now, where it's like I could make the argument of, yeah, I could see some connection in relation to Subaru, right, as a result of many different things, but it's like I don't know that it would be one to one, right? I think I don't know that that is like one to one. It is important for the details that we have that like yeah, there's definitely something here, right? Much like Al, it's like there's definitely something here, but that's like I don't know, that's one to one and similar. Al and Subaru, I never felt was one to one. That was kind of my the whole thing. Uh, I was gonna mention earlier. I do remember. I was surprised. I did not find out any spoilers about this. I did not see any art spoiling this. I saw art of a very specific character, a character that I'm currently seeing with my own two eyes in the text right now. Um, I yeah, it feels a little simple for that sort of thing. I think that's why it doesn't necessarily work. Um, no, yeah, I went through. It was the funny thing of I went through Arc 9 completely spoiler free. All my muted tags were working. Even when people were making brand new tags, I wasn't encountering a lot of that. Again, I know this is weird to thank. I know this is really weird to thank. But I would like to thank Uma Musume for being like the creature that it is on my Twitter feed because it went from haha like these videos are so funny because now I'm into this whole series and I've been actively looking into these horses and stuff like that and learning so much and now I'm a horse nerd. Uh and then it has just become my entire Twitter feed prior to the Deltarune announcement and prior to the new Dorohedoro season and all this sort of stuff. My entire Twitter feed prior to all this was like 90% Uma art. And it was fantastic. It's fantastic art. I love it, right? But it was so funny that that has coincidentally moved any ReZero art I could have seen out of the way. Like now I'm seeing art because of Arc 6, right? Which is awesome. I love seeing Arc 6 art. I've already read it and it's my favorite arc in the whole series, so I get to enjoy that. But I did not see anything about Arc 9 because my Twitter feed is just horse, 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 horse. And then occasionally something else completely unrelated, like Dragon Ball or some shit, or like Fist of the North Star, something, right? So I have to thank it for that. That said, I forgot to mute Arc 10. And again, character I'm seeing with my own two eyes in the text, I saw a different design for, and I went, huh, that's weird. And then I saw that a lot, and I went, oh, that's definitely something going on right now. Um, so I knew about that, but otherwise, I will say a design spoiler, not the worst. If I can't tell what's going on, it's not the worst. I did notice one missing detail, and that is a bit of a spoiler, but uh design change or whatever maybe it doesn't really feel that bad because I don't know the reason as to why, right? That said, I think again I've said this before. I think I saw a comic on my Twitter feed that might have been Arc 10 related. I couldn't tell. So I'm a little bit worried if that was a spoiler because that one's like okay, I can kind of tell what's going on there. Um but I'm gonna hope it's not a spoiler, and we'll find out when we get there. Because when I get there, you'll probably hear me go, "Fuck, it is." Uh, but yeah, I am very glad though that I've been pretty damn spoiler free on all this, and I got to experience all this raw. Um, I was especially shocked about the REM stuff. I know when we read the chapters in regards to REM, I was pretty on top of things, but I am surprised by how little I actually knew, right? I went through that whole thing without any issue, and I did not see any art. And this was like, was this prior to Uma? I think it was, because it would be, it's a video that has the felt thumbnail, and the felt thumbnail was, yeah, July 18. Yeah, it would have just like, it would have pretty much just released around then, or maybe like the month earlier. So like, yeah, my Twitter feed would not have been swarmed with that. That's also going off the review. It would have been like a week or two before that I had actually read the chapter. Um, so yeah, my Twitter feed would have not been swamped with that stuff. And it is a miracle that I did not run into any spoilers about Rem. That one's especially like surprising. Huh. Well, with that said, let's do this. I think I'm pretty much ready to go. Soothing the throat a little bit with that, so that's nice. All right, I think I'm good to go. I'm, in a sense, I'm worried about Monday because I have no idea how the chapters there will be, but we'll find out when we get there. We'll find out. I'll power through it. I think I'd rather power through the chapters on Monday than split it up into Tuesday as well, and then just make that week rough, right? I think I would rather just tackle it all Monday, and then we'll go from there. The reason why Furious assisted the Aldebusters was, of course, none other than for the sake of his master, Krush Karsten. Originally, Furious and Wilhelm had visited the royal capital with the intention of negotiating directly at the royal castle, hoping to join the survey team en route to the Pleiades watchtower that had been cleared for entry. It was during this time that the Aldebaran troop attacked the royal capital, a raid that unleashed a battle between the sword demon and the divine dragon, and saw the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony break loose from his prison. There's a matter I wish to share with you. It's something I would like to ask for your assistance with. It was Otto, the Internal Affairs Minister of the Amelia camp, who gave Furious and Wilhelm the rundown, requesting their cooperation. When the details of Aldebaran's atrocities, as well as the fact of Reinhard's participation in the conflict, had reached Furious's ears, he was not willing, as Wilhelm was, to offer their complete cooperation. Of course, as a member of the royal guard, he felt indulgence towards any who dared to disturb the kingdom's peace. However, he was powerless in combat, and even his healing arts, which ought to have been his lone strong suit, were insufficient to save his master, the one whom he held dear above all else. So what more could he do? In fact, in that battle that immediately followed, Wilhelm was defeated by the divine dragon, suffering serious injuries that left him unconscious, which only served to further reinforce Furious's sentiments. However, a situation arose that forbade Furious from keeping his gaze downcast any longer. It has been some time, Felix Summer. Face to face with the maid, Rem, as she bowed out of courtesy towards him, Furious recalled the events of the conversations they had shared, the battles they fought together, and realized that she was one from whom the authority of Gluttony had been rescinded. In other words, she was a living testament to the prospect of breaking one of Krush's two curses, those being of her memories and of the dragon's blood. In that case, I've got no other choice, do I? It was also the fact that Wilhelm, who had a continued source of encouragement for Furious at times when he felt worthless at Krush's side during her torment, had been taken down. Accepting that request, he lent his strength to the Aldebusters in an attempt to stop the Aldebaran troop, who were determined to accomplish an unknown goal, even if it meant making an enemy of the world. To that end, he resolved himself to do whatever it might take. But then again, of all things, never thought I'd be used as a trump card like this. As he was hit by the tremendous eruption of smoke, violent wind, and pouring rain. Furious covered his mouth with his hand to block the dust as he reflected on the unexpected role that had been levied upon him. Petra's power of compression, it was possible to move objects swiftly or complete discussions in the blink of an eye. Using this, the Aldebusters repeatedly employed the unfair tactic of transporting the wounded to Furious to be healed before being sent back to the battlefield, progressively sinking their teeth into their formidable opponents. Now I'm getting messed up. That alone was already quite the major duty. but to be entrusted with delivering the decisive blow to Aldebaran, someone who possessed an outrageous ability, was something he could never have imagined. Upon Aldebaran, he cast perpetually active healing magic. That was a duty entrusted to Furus, the trump card to be used against Aldebaran, a role that permitted no failure. Ultimately, even now, Furus did not fully grasp the meaning behind his role. Taking into account the words of Petra and Ramji, whenever Aldebaran sustained a mortal wound, uh, time would turn back to before he had received the injury. Such was his interpretation. By exploiting this, Aldebaran had been able to continue tiding over many a tight spot, allowing him to sidestep even Reinhardt. Frankly, Fierce found himself perplexed over what everyone was seriously considering as a possibility. Supposing that they were really true, it would be far too invincible. Nobody could defeat that sort of thing, could they? All the more, or all the more so, if they were saying that Fierce's healing magic was the only way to overcome that invincible power. He thought it would be far, far too big a gamble. That just maybe it might have been foolish. It might have been a foolish act to fully restore the enemy that everyone had worked so hard to corner. Still, what if, by some chance, Fierce actually could deal the decisive blow to this battle? Don't lament, Fierce. Your heart is precious. Be proud of your talents. You have the kindest power in all the world. Your Highness. In the past, there was someone who spoke of Fierce's power that way, taking pride in it. It's going to be, or well, not it's going to be, but I guess it's for you. Both back then and even now, Fierce's power still fell short of the title of Blue. Even so, he wished to believe that there had been a meaning in the fact that he had continued to polish it, not viewing it as a curse. To that end, Roy, if you're out, or if you're there, then come out. Come and eat my name. Unseen within the cloud of dust, mixed with the roaring wind and the screams of the land, a voice could be heard. Seeing that Fierce's healing magic had certainly proved effective as a trump card. This was evidenced by Aldebaran's violent discomposure, his desperate cries through the wind. But opponent had not given up just yet. As Fierce also stretched out his slender knees to stand up, he began to ponder. What else can I still do for the people I hold dear? So he spoke. Regal. Natsuki Regal. I'm just gonna throw that in there just because before I drink. Keep going. Raising his voice amidst the dense enshroudment of dust, Aldebaran assiduously strained his vision. The pouring rain, gusting winds, and rumbling earth roared, rendering him unable to discern the sounds in his surroundings. Even while bearing those unreliable senses of sight and sound, he still raised his voice as if to tear his throat apart. The abominable power of healing that had been cast made it so that instead of spewing forth blood, shrieking throat was instantly being repaired. Whilst being bestowed such an ironic boon, he continued to scream with all his might. Roy! Roy! Find me! It's Regal! Natsuki! Regal! Each time he said it aloud, he felt a heartache as if sandpaper fling away, or filling away at his soul unseen. Yet amidst it all, Aldebaran continued to cry out that name. Time after time, he cried it out. Natsuki Regal. Before he wore the mantle of the falling star, that was the true name Aldebaran bore. Nothing about it felt real to him. Only it caused a sense of irksomeness to cling to a corner of his mind. For Aldebaran, rather than that name, which his parents had never even called him by directly, it was the name that the witch had called him by countless times. Aldebaran. That was far more familiar to his ears. Even that name had been transformed into a wound when the witch had the witch had been reduced to the Witch of Greed. As for who he originally was, he no longer knew, but self-recognition had no bearing upon it. The only thing that mattered was how Odlogna had recorded this pathetic life. That was why I'm Natsuki Regal. That which he deemed only an abhorrence to give as his name, Aldebaran recognized it as himself. Even if one rejected, shunned, or hated them, nobody could choose their parents in life. Continuing to scream even now, Aldebaran frantically searched for Roy amidst the fog. Swept up in a devastating windstorm from a moment ago, all present on the battlefield, had been scattered. Aldebaran had also been thoroughly tossed around. The Witch of Taristia, Fierce, and Roy were of no exception either. At the present, there ought to have been nobody else capable of mobilizing here. But His opponent had preserved their trump card, Furious, until the very last minute. It would not be strange at all if they still had some cards left concealed. Now that Aldebaran's territory had been sealed, such a thing could serve as a deciding factor. Fuck. He thought that he might have been able to at least force the territory's imposition upon Furious, but it was no use. Upon being sidestepped by the Witch of Touristia, the sensation of the freedom he had grasped over the bug had once again receded into the distance. Even if that was not the case, there was a strong randomness to the target selection. He could not bear to witness the Witch of Touristia be chosen again. On top of that, Fierce's healing magic, that which persistently sustained Aldebaran's recovery, was sourcing the mana necessary for its operation from Aldebaran himself. And now, because of his connection with Aldebaran, that was practically inexhaustible. If I can't rely on the territory, intending to exhaust the entirety of the very mana that was impeding him, he would clear away the obstacles with great magic. Formulating such an idea, Aldebaran visualized many techniques within his mind. They were all things he had learned from the witch, knowledge that had been shelved on account of lacking the requisite resources for activation. But now with his connection to Aldebaran, he possessed the ability to employ them. As was the case against Reinhard, he would wield them to the utmost and break this deadlock without use of the territory. The moment he thought that, a nauseating sensation of vomiting filled Aldebaran's mouth. The vehement dizziness and tinnitus in his ears. Aldebaran nearly fell to his knees with an ah. Under the impression someone had attacked him, he scanned his surroundings in a panic, yet no one could be found. Then he made the realization. Right now, the true culprit behind Aldebaran's disorientation was an unfathomable sense of pressure. The pressure of being unable to make the wrong choices was crushing Aldebaran's heart. You've got to be kidding me. Staring down his trembling right hand, Aldebaran was struck speechless. In this high-risk situation, at this critical juncture where everything he had worked towards could be rendered meaningless, in peak physical condition, thanks to that horrendous healing magic, a scenario that demanded optimal and expedited decision-making. To think he would lose his ability to think straight due to a lack of nerve, what a terrible joke. But in truth, it was not a joke or anything of the sort. Even if it seemed as though it was a nightmare, it was reality. After all, Aldebaran had never definitively decided upon anything without the use of his authority. Prior to the commencement of the battle, the Wallachian Empire, the royal selection on the Gladiator Island, and even before all that during his days with the witch, every choice of Aldebaran's had always been the optimal decision, safeguarded by his authority. No matter how he might have failed, he would always redo, choose a different option, and nullify his mistakes. Living his life through those sorry, hold on. I'm feeling it again. Okay, now we're good. Yeah, we're good. Sorry. Living his life through those exertions was Aldebaran's very nature. And right now, that would not apply. He did not know what extent of wind he needed to generate in order to wipe away the dust, without resulting in anyone's death. The heat to evaporate the rainfall, the impact to offset the rumbling earth, whether it would be best to step into those plumes of dust leading with his right leg or left, everything was an unknown variable. The fact that he could not verify anything was terrifying. To walk down a path without the guarantee of the right answer was an act tantamount to fumbling around in pure darkness. Such a path, with no certainty of reward, was one Aldebaran could not tread. After all, with authority rendered ineffective, Aldebaran was nothing more than a helpless wooden doll. Neither the two witches nor the beloved woman had that wooden doll been able to save. Once he began to think, nothing but undesirable notions flashed through his head. Was feeding his name to Roy truly the most optimal stratagem? Were there no other measures he could take? Should he use the curse mark as a shield and let Roy wreak havoc to capitalize on the chaos? What about discovering an unprecedented manner of death to slip through a gap in a perfect healing magic? Would it not be better to flee through the clouds of dust, etc., etc., with his emotions racing ahead? Look at that. It is. Those impatient emotions of his came to a halt at a sensation akin to being dashed in cold water. Hesitation and fear, all of Aldebaran's negative emotions that boiled over upon the ceiling of his authority, as if being dragged out by those. The greatest regret he had kept submerged down The very depths of his being became tinged with heat. A heat so intense that it would scar with a mere, or that it would sear, sorry, with a mere touch. Enough to warm one's skin just by drawing near to it. Yet, contrary to that, feeling a chill that seemed to penetrate down to the or to every last drop of blood in his body, Aldebaran sighed. It is mine. Stop. Mine. Stop. Plugging his ears and averting his eyes, and nearly forced to confront something he had buried at the very bottom of his heart to avoid facing it, Aldebaran screamed, rejecting the voice that sounded within him, rejecting the smile that flashed across his vision, rejecting the warmth that tried to enter his being. He bared his teeth. That instant, he forced his eyes open and caught a glimpse of a faint silhouette beyond the fog. In an instant, the figure was lost amidst the veil of dust, but not a shred of doubt what existed within him. It was Roy. It was gluttony. To pull Aldebaran away from these surging regrets. No, from this worst possible situation that he was currently wrapped up in, there existed a sole ray of hope, and he had glimpsed it. That instant, he broke into a dash. Roy, I'm right here. Eat me. Come eat my name. The hesitation of which, like to step forthwith, the cowardice of seeking a way to die, the weakness of trying to escape to enact a different stratagem, the carelessness of questioning his own choice, all of it was shattered in an instant with the impact of his foot kicking off the ground. That moment, Aldebaran gained the composure to seize the choice fluttering before his eyes, deciding to flee from the most terrifying outcome. Up until this point, Aldebaran had always relied upon the power of his authority to avoid ever locking in the choice he made on the first go. Ergo, he did not know that, when making a choice regarding a single thing, decision motivated by a single-minded desire to escape a situation would never affirmatively change the course of one's own fate. As if to prove that, Alsama. As Aldebaran attempted to rush towards the figure eclipsed by the fog in an effort to escape, his body restrained by a being that had appeared right before him, the actions of Ye Tenzen, oh my god, who was supposed to be his ally, served as proof of that. Oh, I just dropped my water. Hold on. Okay. Ooh. Oh, damn. Oh, damn. This might explain the next chapter title I saw. In a sense, right? But still, ooh. I'm gonna take a second drink of that. Okay. Upon her defeat in battle against Rem, Ye's next battle commenced. Blown away, she rolled down the side of the ice mountain that had been made by freezing the great river, and abandoning all blood-stopping methods she originally could have performed. She put all her efforts into playing the role of the defeated on the verge of death. Her objective in doing so was, I do not intend to take your life. It would sadden that person, after all. When the Oni girl spoke those words and applied her healing magic, Ye won her initial wager. In all honesty, considering her lack of relent during combat, it was difficult to believe that she had no intent of taking her life. But since Ye had actually made it out with her life, she could not complain. Above all else, if she dared to complain here, her only chance would fizzle away like a bubble on water's surface. Fortunately for Ye, she had no choice of turning the situation around on Rem here. No, yeah. Because you know what's funny? This is what they discussed in regards to stuff like healing magic. They talked about rely on that sort of thing too much, and you'll grow way too accustomed to being in your perfect tip-top shape, and therefore getting injured is going to be a problem. You're going to react way worse to it than ever before. So, interestingly, spinning that to the whole loop process and being like, yeah, if that's all you rely on, you don't rely on much else than the perfect outcome, and you always die if it's not the perfect outcome. Yeah, like you're eventually gonna hit a point where you realize I can't do that anymore, and you do a total mental shutdown. Like, it's so good, man. Fuck. Unfortunately for Ye, she had no chance of turning the situation around on Rem here. So long as she could not solve the contrivance that Rem had used to nullify Ye's attack in their final skirmish, and even supposing she had succumbed in launching a surprise attack, she would likely fail to take Rem down. Thus, it would be none other than an act that wasted any chance at a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Ergo, Ye's aim lay elsewhere. It lay in one final act of servitude, devoting her entirety of her soul with what little she had left to offer. As expected, Rem was also wary of a counterattack, so the effects of the healing magic were kept to a minimum, leaving her condition at just closing up her bleeding wounds, stopping the countdown towards death. On top of that, she chained up Ye's hands and feet without any pushback, thoroughness that refusing to grant her any role above that of a hostage or prisoner. But with that alone, her perception of how to deal with a shinobi could only be called naive. So long as she did not experience an instant death, it was in a shinobi's nature to get the job done, even if it meant letting their head fly. She could dislocate all her joints to escape the chains and ignore her mortal wounds by burning her lower abdomen. By doing so, Ye believed that she would still be able to do something for Al at the very end. Uh, or, at the very end of the end, having failed to accomplish a single one of her duties entrusted to her. Thus, the once in a lifetime opportunity Ye had aimed for materialized quicker than she could have ever imagined. Tremendous impact vehemently engulfed the Agzad Canyon and the entire surrounding area. So while the coral, I'm just, man, this time I'm like actually struggling, but then also it's like, I did want to take a drink regardless. Cor- Corollary, cataclysm of aftershocks. Again, as always, I brought up that this sort of thing is going to happen on occasion, right? Tepei loves reading the dictionary way more than I do, and obviously he's going to be way more familiar with stuff that I might not be. Windstorms and flooding quaked the earth as an assault on the land. Ye sprung into action. Fleeing from Rem, who had attempted to protect Ye from the impact, she broke away from the canyon and arrived at the cliff tops. It was then that Ye painfully realized the inadequacy of Al's henchmen, herself included. Amidst the dust storm that seemed to be covering the entirety of the vast canyon, she saw that Al, far from reaching the Grand Mogulad geyser, had been kept occupied by the enemy immediately after climbing up. If Ye, if Aldebaran, if Roy, if Heinkel, if the henchmen whom Al had gathered had been able to fulfill their roles, this ordeal would have never transpired. That was precisely why, her vision disrupted by the dust, her hearing disrupted by the rumbling, and her sense of smell disrupted by the surging billows of the wind, Ye consolidated what little information she could from her five senses and accurately pinpointed the person she needed to find there. Likely, there was nobody who could make the best of this situation like a shinobi could. Feeling grateful for her abduction into the shinobi village for the first time in her life, Ye gallantly hastened to that person. This time for sure, no matter what, in order to become his strength. Roy, I'm right here. Eat me. Come and eat my name. She had no choice but to be useful to Al. That was what she had believed, and yet, Al-Sama, piercing through the enshroudment of dust, caught the man's rushing body head on. Feeling the warmth, weight, and pulsations of life from the touch of his skin, Ye hesitated from the bottom of her heart over what she ought to do. Ye, eh? Al, pitching forward from forcibly being stopped, immediately peered into Ye's side profile and muttered those words as if witnessing something utterly unbelievable. His trembling voice was filled with equal parts wonder and turmoil. However, the same could be said for Ye. No, considering her resolve from a moment ago, it could be said that Ye was even more troubled than Al. She more or less had a grasp of the situation Al was currently in. He had been cornered by some means, and was now attempting to maneuver out of those chaotic circumstances. Gluttony possessed the means to that end, so in order to help Al accomplish his objective, hastening towards the Sin Archbishop amidst the dust would have been the best thing Ye could have done for her final act of servitude. Despite understanding that, Ye obstructed Al's path, slamming her entire body into his. She held him back. Why had she done so? Shocked at her own actions, she scrutinized herself. Ye feared Al. She had wished for him to die, so she was trying to help him accomplish his objective in order to let him die. But with Al as cornered as he currently was, Ye might have been able to kill him with her own hands. Was that why? Was that why she had stopped Al? Was attempting to repay the dread he made her feel? I is love. The budding doubt, the figure of Rem declaring so without hesitation, flashed her mind, and Ye's breath caught. It was different. There was undoubtedly a difference. They may have been maids trying to fulfill the objective of their masters, but Ye and Rem's motivations differed at a fundamental level. They could not be compared. Only recalling the Oni who pursued her single-minded devotion, driven by her absurdly immense passion, Ye suddenly became privy to certain feelings of her own. Ye had wished for Al to die. After all, the monster known as Al was terrifying, so there was no helping it. However, seems like just can't bear the thought of forgetting you, Al-sama. From now to eternity, I could never wish to lose you. There we go. See, I knew that sort of thing was coming. I knew that sort of thing was coming. I knew that what it was going to be is if she's going to stop him, because I figured that's why she was going to show up, right? If she was going to show up there, it was probably going to be to stop him. And at that point, she's already had her talk with Rem. Even if brief, she's had her talk with Rem. She knows what this is now. Even if it's really twisted between them, she knows what this is now. As Ye restrained his movement and voiced the reason for doing so, a momentary lapse was born in Aldebaran's mind. He did not understand. He did not understand. Far too many things he did not understand. With Aldebaran's territory having shattered Ye's heart, she ought to have become an absolute collaborator on the condition of his death. The selfish confidence he had placed in Ye had now betrayed him in the ultimate climax. She had always been waiting for the perfect moment to enact her betrayal. He did not understand. He did not understand. Only with his steps halted, he finally caught up to Al. He had plugged his ears to it, averted his eyes from it, and even buried it at the very bottom of his heart. The voice he had wished to run away from the most. Look at that. It is mine victory again. Priscilla. In this moment where he needed to exert every effort towards pulling the possibility right before his eyes even a little bit closer, the mutter that spilled from Aldebaran's lips was neither the name of gluttony nor that of the woman restraining him, nor even that which belonged to himself. Oh, you know what I'm realizing? Hold on. I want to look something up. I'm thinking about the shadow they were talking about in the dust. Dude, you know what I'm realizing about Ye's hair? It's like decently similar. It's braided. It's relatively short on top and kept to the sides. If you saw a shadow of Ye, it would look like Roy. That's actually, and like presumably, I mean, okay, probably not as small as Roy, but she's also presumably decently short. Like, yeah, if you were out of it, right, like Al is in this current moment, you would run towards that and just think it's Roy. Oh, that's so good. Oh man. Uh uh what was I saying? In this moment where he needed to exert every effort possible, and then I'm just trying to double check where I was again. Okay, no, I think I was on the next one. It's a moment where he needed to do so. It's a moment where he needed to carry that out. Even now, his regrets for having failed to accomplish anything were piling up like ash. Once again, Aldebaran wished upon that very mountain of ash. What do you mean it was your victory, Priscilla? You died. You died, didn't you? The fact that you died means that you lost. The fact that you died means that your desires can't be fulfilled anymore. The only ones in this world who get to continue on after death are me and Natsuki Subaru. That's why it's not the same for you. And yet, what the hell do you mean it was your victory? Even though you're the least suited to being a poor loser, or out of any woman in this world, at the very end, why did you admit defeat? In the end, why did you smile, Priscilla? Your stars, huh? Your stars were bad, Al-sama. As Aldebaran devoted his attention to those unanswerable questions, Ye stared at him from within his chest. Hearing her voice so bereft of composure, the words contained within caused Aldebaran's breath to catch. Blaming the stars, it was a phrase that Aldebaran would sometimes vocalize, something Ye had also heard him say. So, was this an act of revenge? Now that she had halted Aldebaran, she would say those words out of retaliation? No. Ye's crimson eyes were telling him that such was not the case. zero radiance alight within those eyes. It was of the same quality as what had once illuminated the eyes of the witch. They spoke to him. It isn't your fault, Aldebaran. Who There's no way that could be true. Such violent emotions immediately welled up within him. The situation leading up to this point, the circumstances up until now, the merits and demerits of having things turned around the way they had, or turning out the way they had. The fault for absolutely all of that lay with Aldebaran and with Natsuki Subaru. Uh, it being any other or it being any other way was an impossibility. Thereupon, Al, unobstructed by even the maelstrom of dust, a voice of silver bells tore through his momentary ardor in the blink of an eye. Yep, there she is. Coming to her feet before scurrying to hop out of the canyon, Amelia was shocked by that sight. Just when I thought I felt a really big tremor. As dust filled her vision to the brim, the voice of the wind would not cease roaring. Furthermore, with the tremors of the land that seemed only to be getting bigger, things had visibly gotten quite bad during the time was unconscious. But that would not discourage her. She would not lose heart. Amelia did not have the time to feel disheartened. I have to hurry. I have to hurry to Al. The reason why their allies had entrusted Amelia and Rem with stopping Al was because everyone believed that the two of them were the most suited to the task. The reason why Rem had sent Amelia off to go chase Al as he flew away was because Rem placed her faith in Amelia to do so. Carrying all that upon her back, and since she hold on, excuse me, sorry, and since she fired herself up in order to save Subaru and Beatrice, she would not allow Al to get away. Found him. Al and that girl. Amelia plunged through the dust with determination. Beyond it, she found the figures of Al and Ye embracing, causing her all the more surprise. Rem ought to have been keeping Ye at bay. The fact that Ye was now here caused her to worry about Rem. Fierce had placed powerful healing magic over her, saying it was a good luck charm, but even so, Amelia was still concerned for her safety. I have to catch up to them and find out right away. It happened the moment she firmly kicked off the ground. Within Amelia's vision, from beyond the embracing Al and Ye, a great shift sweeping aside the dust was approaching. That was the true source of the tremors, that refused to subside below her feet, the origin of the ceaseless screaming of the land, drawing ever closer as it finally quaked the earth, was a flash flood of tremendous volume. A bit further, bearing witness as it attempted to mercilessly wash away everything on the battlefield, Amelia picked up the pace of her steps without even thinking. Al! As he raised his visage in surprise at her call, she crossed gazes with the eyes veiled behind his helmet. Leaping over the embracing pair, Mila faced off directly against the flash flood surging forth. And then, icicle line. The atmosphere raised a high-pitched screech, and an unbelievable scope of glaciation was enacted against the flood. They were inundated by a double. I just let me just take the drink now. They were inundated by a deluge of mythical proportion, as if a great lake had been upended like a bucket. To combat it, the beautiful girl with her silver hair fluttering behind her rapidly froze all the water pouring in, fashioning it into a glacier. Yeah! However, there was an unfavorable game of cat and mouse between the glaciation and flash flood. Even if the cold air Amelia produced froze part of the flood, the next wave would crash over the ice, forcing her to freeze that too. The cycle repeating again and again created an ice umbrella, a glacier that constantly expanded as the water flowed over it. Yeah. With Amelia as the origin, the ice umbrella expanded radially as she emitted cold air in parallel with the flow of the flood water, arching over Aldebaran's head before it continued past him. The larger that structure grew, the heavier it became. As cracks began to form in the umbrella, it was only a matter of time before it came crashing down with immense weight. For a moment, Amelia glanced back, locking eyes with Aldebaran. Perhaps thinking something of that, Amelia tightly pressed her lips together. Uriah! She reinforced the umbrella of ice as it loudly creaked and fissured, and continued the construction of the great glacier that had been on the verge of collapse. To keep the umbrella from falling, pillars of ice shot out from the ground one after another as support beams. However, Aldebaran focused his attention elsewhere. Emilia styled herself the Witch of Glaciation, and in fact, she exhibited enough power to back that title up. But now, at this very moment, if the reason why Emilia was exhibiting power that surpassed her limits was because of the look they exchanged a moment ago, if it was the same as when she had protected Aldebaran in the canyon after he had deployed the massive boulder as a trap, Emilia was manifesting her strength in order to protect Aldebaran. With those thoughts, he now realized Emilia had properly been looking at Aldebaran and had also been trying to talk to him. I'm. A raspy voice escaped his throat, but no further did it continue. Merely, he felt there had been some vast, irreparable discrepancy from even before his authority had been sealed, one he could no longer redo, one he could no longer reverse. Sorry. Look at that. It is mine victory. What do you mean it was your victory? Ultimately, he never knew. But Priscilla, when you said those words, and you smiled that triumphant look strewn upon your face, you were so truly. That'll be as far as you go. That instant, the absurd iron hammer mowed down nearly everything in the vicinity, piercing the battlefield as a streak of light. And that's what I saw as the chapter title, because the chapter title of this next one is The Sound of Chains. I knew this was coming. I knew this sort of thing was coming. Oh, that was good. That was very good. Honestly, the Ye and Al stuff reminds me a lot of Ram and Roswell, which is fitting considering, Arc 4, Echidna, all that. It's like, you know what? That's that's really damn fitting in that regard. Hmm. Okay. Okay, there we go. Maybe this really will end in Al's defeat. I guess we'll have to see. Hmm. Fuck. Let me see what we have for next time. 6,000 words. No problem at all. I don't know what the next few chapters will be after that, but if we're starting with a 6,000 word one, that doesn't seem too bad. That doesn't seem too bad. I think I should be pretty good for that. I think I will be pretty damn good for that. But with that, it's nearly like 12. We finished before it even hit 12 by 2 minutes, but still we finished before it even hit 12. That's that's wild. We're getting a lot better with this. That said, yeah, I'm gonna call it for tonight because it's getting late. So might as well. This was very fun. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad to have. I mean, in a sense, I was bound to at some point, but it's like I'm glad to have read these chapters. Right? I'm glad I didn't delay this to Monday and then like split it up into Tuesday and all that. I'm glad I was just here. I read this and I had a lot of fun with this. I'm glad. But with that said, we're going to end off here. So we will be back Monday. At least that is what I'm going to aim for. And we will wrap up this whole arc then. I will power through it. We will wrap up this whole arc then. Unless I'm really not feeling it towards the end. I'm just not feeling great or something like that. In which case, we'll do Tuesday. Like we'll also do some Tuesday. Or maybe we'll just outright do it Tuesday. But most likely, we will be here for Monday. Right? So, with that said, I'm going to end off. Right? Yeah, I mean, really, that's going to be about it. So, take care. Have yourselves a great night, great day, whatever it may be, right? Ooh, sorry, excuse me. Stay safe. And yeah, we will be back to end off this arc next time. So, take care, peeps.